Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the PROTO GT3 Championship as brought to you by NXTGEN Racing on the Premier Sim Racing platform known only as iRacing, available on PC. We are back after a week's break to kick off round 5 and indeed the second third of the championship of this 12-round championship, and we are here today at the Austrian circuit at the Red Bull Ring to get things back underway for your viewing pleasure. Our schedule, of course, times in BST or UTC +1 are as follows. We'll be in about approximately 14.5 minutes, kicking off with a qualifying at 8 o'clock this evening. That'll be the 20-minute session to determine our grid order for the purposes of our first race of the evening, and that will follow immediately after. That is the 15-minute sprint race that will kick off at 8:20. And the strategy there is get to the front of your respective class and simply bring home the win and get the maximum possible points, and also try and get fastest lap while Stradex. It is worth some extra points, and then we'll be taking a brief break after that before returning approximately what will be 5 to 9 this evening, and that will be for the feature race, the 60-minute feature race, our second of our 2 races today, and that will be kicking off at 9 o'clock this evening. And that race, of course, has its all-important mandatory pit stop, which will throw a new conundrum into the works. But it's not just about being out in front in terms of track position, but also getting your strategy right. And these races, of course, worth equal points in both endeavours. Now, this broadcast is being brought to you live via one of 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You can tune in firstly via our official YouTube channel, NXTGEN Racing. If you go on YouTube, that's NXTGEN Racing. Secondly, if you are a Facebook user, you can go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Or last but not least, if you are Twitch inclined, you can tune in via my personal Twitch channel, and that is twitch.tv/TX141. For just to introduce myself, I'm your broadcaster and commentator. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141, or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action across our 2 lobbies throughout the entirety of this series. And speaking of our lobby today, well, of course, we are back with Lobby 1, the Apex Racing Academy lobby, or ARA lobby in short, and this indeed is our lobby with our LMP PRO class, plus also its respective GT3 PRO and GT3 AM classes, all battling it out to secure some huge prizes up for grabs. And it's only fair that we now come on to introduce our title sponsor for this lobby, Apex Racing Academy. Let's hand over to them. I hear you ask, who are Apex Racing Academy? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They're dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times, and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. And in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested? Then why not sign up now at apexracingac.com. That web address again, apexracingac.com. And we're very grateful to have Apex Racing Academy with us for this season, sponsoring Lobby 1. They've been with us since the start of our series on iRacing, indeed dating all the way back to the GT3 Championship Season 1. And in terms of their contribution, they're helping us in running the series, but also providing us with some of the prizes for the prize pool in Lobby 1, and in particular Apex Racing Academy yearly subscriptions for our winners in the GT3 Pro and GT3 AM classes. And that'll go towards their prize pool alongside what will be the cash prize pool that's to be confirmed for the LMP class, and indeed that coming out of NXTGEN Racing's contribution pool there. There is the case, a lot of great prizes up for grabs there, and we're very grateful to have Apex Racing Academy with us once more. Now, speaking of drivers and whatnot, and indeed the championship, well, let's give you a quick recap of the calendar as it currently stands. So, the first 4 rounds, as you can see there, we started off at Watkins Glen on the 6th of April, and we ended with the 4th round in the first third at Daytona Road Course with our first of our 3 2-hour super endurance races on the 27th of April. In between, we went to Road Atlanta and also briefly detoured out to the United States of America to Motorsport, or the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Full, on the 20th of April. It is the case we've now covered all of our races that will take place on the North American continent, and as the 11th of May today, we are at the Red Bull Ring in Austria to kick off the series tour of continental Europe. Following today, we'll be heading to Hockenheim in a week's time for the German circuit on the 18th of May, then going to Italy for Monza on the 25th of May, before at the very first day of June, the 1st of June, we'll be taking our second super endurance event, and that will be taking place at Spa-Francorchamps, and well, what a venerable and legendary circuit to go racing at. We'll then take a brief break before doing a little bit of island hopping. Firstly, to the British Isles, and particularly Silverstone on the 15th of June when we come back for round number 9 after a week's break. Then we'll be heading all the way across the Asia-Pacific region for Suzuka in Japan on the 22nd of June, before coming back to continental Europe for our final 2 rounds. The Nürburgring on the 29th of June, I believe that is the GP Vidal circuit. And then last but not least, the final one of our 3 super endurance rounds, and a grand finale at the Circuit de la Sarthe, or Le Mans, on the 6th of July. We've got an absolutely stacked calendar, and to go with it, we've got an absolutely stacked set of championships. And well, let's come on to how they stand after the opening 4 rounds. We begin, of course, with the LMP Pro class here, and we can see that on 220 points right out front, it is Chris Daines right now who has had the perfect score out of the opening 4 rounds. He has not dropped a single point, and again, he paid dividends to his overall performance and his love for the Dallara P217 LMP2 machine last time out at Daytona, picking up the fastest lap and the win as well. Can anybody stop him? That is the question. Well, Gaz Williams in P2 is looking to do so, and to be fair, whilst this point score would say that nobody's really in the hunt after Chris Daines, it is the case that Gaz Williams has been looking very strong in practice building up to today at the Red Bull Ring, and it is the case that the NXTGEN Racing driver here will be looking to try and break the gap to Robert de Ceunik, get the gap open from 24 points to a much larger one, and start to reel on in Chris Daines. Can he do it? That will be the big challenge here tonight. Can he get off on the front foot? Robert de Ceunik has been building momentum meanwhile there in P3 after a great result at Daytona with that 3rd place finish, and then Dan Skinner and Jamie Dory completing the top 5 there on 120 and 106 points respectively, and really Jamie Dory marking the rest of the pack that's chasing after Dan Skinner, who acts as the bridge between the top 3 and then the rest of the LMP2 class field. With Alistair Kirk there in P6, only 8 points off of Dory, Adam Delmont a further 3 behind, and Ed Lack there a further 3 as well. The 3 drives of Kirk, Delmont and Lack all having a great rivalry between them, and we're looking forward to more battling between them tonight. Alex Everett there, not able to take part last time at Daytona on 71 points, and Phil McDougall, last but not least, with a difficult day at Daytona, not picking up any points in P10 there on what is 43 points. Meanwhile, we come up from the LMP class to our GT3 PRO class, and we can see here the story is similar in effect, with Matt Caruana now our runaway leader in the championship, albeit it hasn't been perfect for Caruana by any means, but last time out at Daytona having a perfect score of 52 points for the win and also the fastest lap, but it did not come easily for Matt Caruana. He had to fight for it versus Antonio Giovinazzi, also Tom Edmonds and Callum Regarten. A brilliant four-way battle that ended in a lot of drama and went down to Caruana versus Regarten to the line, but it was Caruana who emerged on top, and he'll be looking to carry that momentum forward here at the Red Bull Ring. Carmelo Martello, meanwhile, after a great season opener, indeed a lot of momentum being built in the opening 2 rounds, that momentum has sloped off to a degree, and he's now only 1 point ahead of Matthew Hodges there in P3. And Matthew Hodges, really perhaps one of the most understated drivers in this series so far. He's been there on consistency. He's not picked up some stellar performances. You could say he's not been grabbing the headlines, but he's been right up there in terms of that consistency. That means he's in P3 in the class so far. Gavin Garner for Verano Motorsport there on 116 points, only ahead of Tom Edmonds from what is Altitude Esports on Countback. And outside the top 5 there, we see Billy Fletcher in P6, not able to arrive at Daytona last time out, 102 points to his name. Callum Regarten, of course, his teammate, alongside Tom Edmonds as well, in P7, and continuing to build after that second place finish at what was Daytona. William Foll in P8, he will not be taken to the circuit as I understand it tonight, so we will not be seeing the venerable McLaren driver make his way around in the MP4 at 12C. Lee Horn P9 and Jean-Louis Deschamps completing our top 10. Eduardo Frankishim in P11, what is 13 points ahead of Stefan Albanese, and then Maurizio Macconi and Maurizio Massi, they're both having difficult openers to their season at opening third and looking to try and build a bit more momentum tonight. Meanwhile, in the GT3 and the Championship, the story is very, very different. There is a rivalry at the top, which I don't think is going away anytime soon, because whilst Matt Emmons currently leads the Championship, he only leads it by 1 point. And to be fair, we have to give credit where credit is due. Matt Emmons picked up his first win in this series last time out at Daytona. We were wondering when it was going to come, if it would ever come, but he finally brought the Audi R8 home on the top step, and what a way to do so at Daytona, in fantastic form. But it is his teammate from Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK, Matthew Addy, only a point behind him, and Matthew Addy picked up the spoils in second place plus the fastest lap. And it is really the case that the two teammates, rivals, will we see them come to blows tonight? Of course, we saw that at Watkins Glen in the season opener. Will we see it again? They will be hoping not, and indeed the team won't be hoping for it, but there is a question around that. Ben Payne in P3 there, the best of the rest at the moment, 126 points. And it is the case that the Crest Autosport driver Ben Payne has been putting in some very strong performances, albeit it's been the consistency that's kept in there, as well as some notable results finishing in the top 5. Nigel Stock really building momentum there in P4 for the Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks team as well on 122 points. We're expecting more from him in the Mercedes as this season goes on. He's becoming very strong. And then Morten S. Usto is completing our top 5 there, with Hilliard Esport having a very difficult day at Daytona. It was the case that the majority, if not all of their drivers, had major incidents and lost out on some critical points. Stuart P. Taylor in P6 on 102 points for TGC Racing ahead of Alexander Batak with that retirement, and the same for Stefan Gamble Rasmussen there, the two Hilliard Esport drivers both picking up retirements due to major incidents, and then Scott McLean and Jochen Siegert complete our top 10. Outside the top 10, Darren Doherty there on 57 points, 13 ahead of Mikael Andreasen, who's only taking part in this series part-time due to other commitments. Joseph McManus returning to the circuit tonight, currently P13 on 33 points. Jordan Pope on his debut last time out Daytona wasn't quite on the pace, but still brought home a good amount of points, and Callum Jenkins, last but not least, on 18 points there in P15. Well, we come to from our Drivers' Championship to our team standings, the Mark Sykes Designs Team Standings Championship, and we can see here it's the case that Verano Motorsport continue to hold on to the lead, now 20 points clear of Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK, but it is the case that this could turn at any moment, and Verano Motorsport do have a new driver join us as of tonight, and we'll introduce them in the near future. But we can see Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK only 1 point ahead of McChallenge by DB1. It is the case the McChallenge outfit really growing momentum as this championship goes on. We're expecting great things from them, albeit they are localised to what is Lobby 2, so the IMB Raceway lobby, so you'll see more of them on Friday this week. RP Motorsport Prime there in P4, and the Racing Team Astra, or RTA Blue there, completing our top 5 with the blue outfit for Racing Team Astra looking very strong at Daytona, and they'll be looking to keep their momentum tonight. Next Gen Racing P6 ahead of Racing Team Astra Team Orange, McChallenge by DB2, a Team Racing Netherlands and Hilliard Esport completing our top 10, and then we can see Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks looking to try and get their way into the top 10, albeit they've had a muddle of results over the opening 4 rounds, and that's held them back to an extent, but they are starting to find their feet, particularly with the building arrival of Nigel Stock in terms of that momentum he's building, and you can expect great things from the team in the future, with RD Simsport there in P12 and 224 points, ahead of CXR Project Black, Excite Racing and DRS Esports LMS1 completing the top 15, and it's Crest Autosport Ferrari on 203 points, TGC Racing on 200 in P17, Altitude Esports a further 3 behind in P18, RP Motorsport Senior and Team Tetridge completing the top 20, and outside the top 20, but not to be forgotten about, of course, Hollerton Racing there in P21 on 137 points. Creeping away from Team MRC now with DRS Esport, LMS2, BRM and TGC Bottom Split Heroes completing your championship standings for the team championship at this time. Now we come from the standings to our host circuit for today, and that is the Red Bull Ring, located Spielberg, the Styrian region of Austria. This circuit consisting of 9 corners or 10 corners, depending on how you treat the kink in the run-up towards Rima's corner at turn 2. This circuit is all about being brave on the brakes and being smart with the draft. If you can master those two aspects, you go very well at this circuit, and it is the case. As you can see, the run from turn 1 to turn 2 and the run from 2 to 3, 2 very long straights for slipstream is going to be a critical factor, and then it's the rest of the lap after turn 3 where we start to see a lot of medium speed apexes, but a lot of good straightaways as well for overtaking opportunities. And as we are grateful as always to Sim Racing Wiki for the circuit map, you can be sure we're going to be seeing plenty of battling action tonight. Now, as for our rules, you can see there is one rule in particular that has been introduced. It's highlighted in red tonight. We've got a slight change in our rules, but let's take you through them as always. Setup wise, our drivers shall be running the iRacing sprint setup for tonight's races, regardless of what class they're in. As the case, this is a fixed setup series. Qualifying is where we've got a new rule being introduced, and it's a trial for as of tonight, which is the qualifying session of 20 minutes shall be split into 2 equal halves. We took on board the feedback of our drivers and the teams, and it is the case. They were asking, rather than it being one major session of 20 minutes where everybody's out on circuit, it'll be split into 2 equal halves. The first 10 minutes being for the LMP2s, and the second 10 minutes, or the remaining 10 minutes, I should say, being for the GT3s. So we'll see the LMP2s have a clear qualifying session, and then GT3s pile out on circuit as well. It'll be a sprint race, of course, the sprint race that follows on, and the rules for that. The simple rule is that a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. And in the feature race, we'll be seeing that the grid shall be set as a reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race. The grid shall be separated into car classes, and I should clarify, by the way, I've only just been informed recently that the grid will be starting in terms of the car classes approximately 10 seconds apart, not 2 seconds apart, so apologies for the brief typo there. There should be 1 mandatory pit stop, which requires drivers to take on fuel. Changing tyres is entirely optional. If they do decide to go for fresh tyres, our drivers, then they will, of course, spend more time in the pits, but they may have a bit more pace later on. Each driver shall have 1 fast repair available in the feature, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points. Well, that's enough about rules, regulations, standings and whatnot. I know what we're all here for. I am indeed, much like you guys and girls in the chat and tuning in right now, we're here for the racing. Well, let's head down to the circuit then and see what is happening at this time in this final practice session as our drivers are getting themselves all set right now. And it does look as though at this point in time, most of our drivers parked in the pit lane. And what we can see there is the case. We do have our newcomer, Sean Cranley Swash, and he is racing in the GT3 AM class for Verano Motorsport. And we'll talk a little bit more about him when we go into qualifying. But right now, out on the circuit, drivers making their way around. We've only got a limited number here with less than 10 seconds to go before this practice session is concluded. Robert de Ceunik here, the Dutchman for Team Racing Netherlands, looking increasingly strong at Daytona, really came alive. Can he find a way to do even better today and really start to mount that pressure on Gaz Williams and also Chris Daines? We'll wait and see. As we see him make his way into turn number 8 here, into Jochen Rindt corner. We do look to the chat here. We say hello in the Facebook chat to Katie Eames there. And it's good to see you tuning in as always, Katie, and glad to hear you're doing well. We've also got NXTGEN Ultra there, or I believe that might be Kevin Smith in the YouTube chat. Good evening to you, Kevin, if that's the case. And also Gumball HS73 in the YouTube chat, cheering on Dan Skinner. Well, it's good to see you all tuning in. And if you are tuning in, do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. We can see all 3 chats. Let me know who you're cheering on and what your thoughts are of the Red Bull Ring circuit. This is a circuit which some absolutely love, some dislike, and in some they don't mind if it's on the calendar or not. I find this a very interesting circuit as a sim racing driver myself, to be honest with you, for the simple reason it looks a very simple circuit, but I can assure you it's far from simple, given the fact that a lot of the braking zones here you really have to be bold on the brakes and dare to dream how deep you can go into the braking zone. Also turn 1 in particular, a very tricky corner for the simple reason it's got a dip in the middle of the apex curve, and that can unsettle a car massively. As we do say hello to Stuart from Simrigs there in the Twitch chat, and that's Simrigs UK there, and I hope you're doing well, Stuart, and indeed to everyone tuning in, I hope you're all doing well and you're having a great week. We're just past Wednesday, only 2 to go before the weekend, and that gives us something to look forward to. But right now we are into the qualifying session and we're in the opening 10 minutes, which means we are going to be seeing our LMP2 drivers take to the circuit, and it is the case that Gareth Williams, or Gaz Williams as he's known in short, as he makes his way there through turn number 7, he's going to be the first of our drivers to go onto a flying lap very shortly, and this will be new ground for our drivers, given the fact they will not have to worry about another class's traffic in terms of a different car class. And so we ride on board here with Gaz Williams as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Red Bull Ring. So coming out to the final corner and charging across that timeline, building up through the gearbox here, going up into 5th gear, getting ready for turn 1, looking for his brake mark on the left-hand side. It'll be the 100-meter board, and as he comes down the gearbox all the way down to 2nd, tucking it into the apex, we'll get him back on the loud pedal as soon as possible, and that's the long charge up towards Remus at turn 2. Here completely flat out, but you'll see that he now starts to go uphill, and as he does so, he can dare to brake a lot later here into the hairpin corner, braking at that 100-meter board, going all the way down to 1st, tuck it in nice and tight to the apex, and then immediately get the throttle back on, use the runoff curbing there, and now charge it down towards turn number 3. Now in charging down the hill here, it's a downhill braking zone, so he has to brake a little bit early here because of the momentum of the car and downhill sloping. Braking at about 125 metres, coming all the way down the gearbox to 1st gear, goes a bit deep, our tyres are cold, and as a result that upsets the lap quite considerably, and as he now tries to build himself back up to speed, I do believe he's going to be letting Jamie Dory through past him, and we've now right on board with Jamie Dory as he takes us through 5 into 6, and coming into the second half of the lap now as he rolls them down in towards turn number 6, and coming into that left-hander, the sweeping apex, before rolling out into turn number 7, and now completely flat out through 7, up towards turn 8 he goes, heading up towards Jochen Ring corner, was named after the famous motorsport driver, and as he makes his way into that braking zone, that 50-meter board proving to be his brake marker, down in 3rd gear, using a bit of the runoff space there before turning it into turn number 9 through A1 corner as it's known, and then using the runoff space to get on the throttle as he comes across the timeline. What's it going to be for Jamie Dory? It'll be the opening flying lap of the session, a 121.9 versus Gaz Williams, who's aborted lap there. We ran off circuit, so that is not an accounted lap, but meanwhile, immediately as we would expect, he's come flying out the gate. He's 7/10 faster, albeit I think Dory was impeded to a degree by Williams' mistake. It's Chris Daines, the Danishman, who has pressed into this qualifying session as he planned to continue from Daytona, and well, he's not provisional pole straight away because Robert de Ceunik has struck back hard on the 20.665. As I said earlier, Robert de Ceunik looking very, very fast. And to be fair, for those of you who tuned in to the GT3 Championship Season 2 early this year, you may recall that Robert de Ceunik was one of our fast chargers in the GT3 Pro class in the Apex Racing Academy lobby, making a double overtake into turn 1, which caught the eyes of many of you. Indeed, it caught my eyes as well, and was up for was a candidate for overtake of the season. And as we see him making his way down towards turn 3, he does go very well typically here at the Austrian circuit, and we're looking forward to seeing what else he can produce as he makes his way now down through 3 and heading through 4 up into 5. But as we do look from him to a bit further around, we can see Dan Skinner here for Excite Racing coming down through turn number 6 and down through number 5 and up into 6. And as he rolls on through here, it is the case that Skinner looking nice and composed there, albeit takes a little bit of gravel with him going into 7, which you can do and you can get away with to an extent, but do a bit too much, and that's track limits there. As he makes his way down into turn number 8, it is the case, we can see it, Gaz Williams has responded, and in the meantime, Dan Skinner coming around. What's this going to be? This will be his first flying lap as Daines is on a charge right now, I can definitely tell you. Well, there is Skinner coming across the line. For him, it's a what appears to be, as our time screen's updated. Well, no, in fact, that was track limits there at turn number 7, so he wasn't able to qualify that as a lap. But what about Chris Daines? Well, Daines right now P4, but he's on another lap here, and we just had a point there from Gumball HS73 in the YouTube chat to say, did you hear about Daines breaking his foot? And indeed, for those who are wondering, ladies and gentlemen, whether that's true or not, it is indeed true. Chris Daines was saying to a couple of the drivers down in the paddock in the build-up to tonight that he did actually really hurt his foot. He broke his foot in the previous race at Daytona because of the amount of pressure that was put on the pedals, and his foot slipped off the pedals. And if I remember correctly, he was saying it was the equivalent of 50 kilograms of braking force being put down onto his ankle. And well, you can imagine he wasn't in pain at the time. Adrenaline was keeping him going at Daytona, but it was the case that after Daytona he had to check with the doctors, and he's found out he actually broke his foot. So he is racing tonight and he's going to press on, but I think it is the case with Daines right now. He is running with a bit of an injury, but he's not letting that stop him anytime soon. Now, as we look at Daines making his way through the final corner here, well, I did have the chance to catch up with Daines in the build-up to tonight, and he said that tonight was going to be a tough race, not just because of the foot situation. As he crosses the line, takes provisional pole, 3/10 clear of Robert de Ceunik there on a 120.342. He's saying it's going to be a tough race for the simple reason that because the lap around here is so quick for the LMP class cars, approximately a 10-second difference between the LMP class lap time on average and that of the GT3 class lap time. It's going to be just as much about who can manage the traffic best as well as outright pace, if not more on traffic management. Now, what he means by that is in terms of the LMP drivers will of course come up behind the GT3 cars and treat them as traffic, in terms of that's what multi-class racing does generate. And therefore, you've got to really pick your place to make your way past the GT3s. And the run from turn 1 to turn 2, so the first of the main straights, As we see there, that is, I believe, that is Robert de Ceunik who's gone for a spin, or is that Gareth Williams? I'm not entirely sure. I think that might have actually been Gareth Williams as we look to drive two very similar liveries on the cars, to be fair. But in terms of traffic, the run from turn 1 to turn 2 and the run from 2 to 3 are very good places for an LMP car to come past GT3s. Also the start finish straight and the run from turn 7 up to turn 8, but it's the run out of turn 3 all the way through to turn 6. That's where it gets a bit crowded, and that's not what you want to catch GT3 class traffic and have to try and find your way on through. And that's what Daines will have in mind tonight. On top of that as well, as he makes his way up through the right-hander here of turn number 9, he was clarifying saying that if you catch GT3 cars coming into the Red Bull Statue Arena, so that is the run essentially from turn 3 all the way through to turn 7, then you simply have to sit and wait, and by that time a 3-second gap could turn into a half-second gap in terms of an advantage that you may have over the driver behind you, or conversely it could extend if you are trying to chase somebody. And he's got his eyes on Gaz Williams in particular, because in the practice sessions that were run earlier this week, it was the case that Gaz Williams took the lead from Chris Daines in terms of the overall lap times and showed amazing pace. We'll have to wait and see whether the story plays out here in anger in the real session in terms of in qualifying and the race, with only 2.5 minutes to go before the qualifying session's over for the LMP class drivers. But it is the case that Daines has got his eyes on the next gen racing driver, and as he makes his way on down, the other thing he wanted to say is good luck to the additional Verano Motorsport Amdro, Sean Cranley Swash, who will be competing in this series as of tonight. He'll be on his debut, and we'll talk more about Swash and show you what car he's running in short order. But he will be in a Verano Motorsport livery, much like Daines and much like Gavin Gardner, who's the GT3 Pro driver, of course. But as we look from Daines right now, we do look to Gareth Williams here. And Daines, in fact, on a flyer of a lap. He's just set a purple Sector 2 and a personal best in Sector 1. Gareth Williams not improving at all at this time. But to be fair, I think Williams right now building up to something sensational. He is half a tenth off of Robert de Ceunik, who in turn is a tenth off of Alistair Kirk, that is. And Alistair Kirk is 2 tenths off of Daines. So it is possible for our drivers here to put in a better lap and improve to some extent, as Daines cross the line and sets a 20.1. My goodness, Chris Daines is absolutely giving it everything in this qualifying session. I think he's stepping it up his game versus Williams, but of course he does have to manage that injury and keep an eye on what exactly happens with regards to his foot over the course of the racing, because whilst in qualifying he might push and find it comfortable, remember after 15 minutes of sprint racing and an hour of feature length racing, it is the case that injury may take its toll. Of course we don't wish that on anyone, but it can be one of those situations that he has to manage. As we also say hello in the YouTube chat there to Joe Winner 1408, and well, it's good to see you, Jochen. That's Jochen Siegert there in the YouTube chat if you guys and girls want to say hi to him. Fantastic guy, by the way, very friendly chap and a very strong racer as well. Unfortunately still waiting to be able to get back into the race, he says there, but we do look forward to welcoming him back out on circuit in the near future. But as we do see Gaz Williams making his way around through a turn at number 5 and down towards 6 right now. In terms of his lap time, where he's gone purple in Sector 2, he's had a weak Sector 1 compared to his personal best as he makes his way through and just about keeps it in the track limits there of turn number 7 heading up towards 8, and he's going to have one more lap after this one, because remember the qualifying session for the LMP drivers ends when they hit the 10-minute mark. You can imagine it's effectively a bit of a virtual checkered flag that comes out for them, albeit they can finish the lap they're currently on, and Gareth Williams comes around this time. Can he improve from what was his previous best? Well, he crosses the line. We wait for the update on the timing board, and it is not an improvement for Williams. And I think, in fact, that lap may have been disallowed because of the run wide coming out of what was turn 6 into 7, unless I'm mistaken. But as he makes his way onto another lap now, he's only got one more lap to do it. And, well, this will not be the way he wanted it to go. No, sorry, because he was looking very fast in practice, as we say hello to Billy Goat Boy in the YouTube chat there. But as we do see Williams making his way around, we look back to Jamie Dory, another one of the next gen racing drivers here, down in P6 right now, and only a tenth behind Adam Delmont. And well, Jamie Dory coming towards the end of his lap, and as he comes towards the end of his, Alistair Kirk's not too far behind either, as we do see the second place man in this qualifying session coming on through. And Kirk, of course, while those drivers very strong around here at the Red Bull Ring. We saw that in the GT3 Championship Season 2, where he just simply stole the headlines with a sensational recovery drive. He goes very wide there at the A1 corner as he comes across the line. I think it's going to be the case that Kirk parking it up and saying it is over. But as we look from here to Dan Skinner here, who is on the lap right now, and Adam Delmont, in fact, we do have to cut to Adam Delmont. He's gone for a personal best in Sector 1. What about in Sector 2? It's the case he's down on his personal best in Sector 2 as Chris Daines has crossed the line. He's not improved. He came very close to improving, and we can see that Delmont just pulling out the toe briefly of what is in front of him. That is, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, And that is Robert de Ceunik just in front of him. And as they come out the final corner, Gaz Williams has improved to P2. 4.5 tenths of Chris Daines. Can even the drivers here improve? No, it's not the case. But as we see they've all crossed the timeline, well, Gaz Williams has pipped Alistair Kirk to P2 in the end by 1/10,000th of a second. That is how close it is between the two of them, and Williams leaving it late, but he's got the job done to get onto that front row. But now, with the LMP drivers having completed their qualifying laps, it's now the case we've got the GT3s making their way onto circuit, as we see Jordan Pope here running a little bit wide to give Robert de Ceunik the space to come on through turn number 2. And now we're going to see a slightly slower set of qualifying laps, but we're going to see a more crowded circuit because, of course, our GT3 class is made up, our GT3 car class, I should say, is made up of 2 drivers classes, and that is the pros and also the AMs. And one AM we do need to introduce straight away is Sean Cranley-Swash here, the Verano Motorsport driver, making his way around on his debut in the number 17 car. Keep your eyes out for him. I didn't have the chance to catch up with the Briton in the build-up to tonight, although I can tell down the paddock he got a very warm welcome by everybody, very friendly community racing in this series, and indeed it was the case. They welcomed him with open arms, and Verano Motorsport will be looking forward to seeing what he can do. You can see his teammate Gavin Gardner there in the pro class just ahead of him, and he's running in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, one of the very stable mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars in the class. And in fact, we're going to ride on board with what is here Swash, Cranley-Swash, as he makes his way around for his first flying lap in the series. He's coming across the timeline and making his way up towards turn number 1 here, looking for that brake marker, getting the 100-metre board, coming down the gearbox very comfortably indeed, and rolling on through the turn 1 apex there. A large amount of apex curve being taken. We see Gavin Gardner just taking a bit too much exit curve and riding onto the yellow sausage. That's unsettled the rear of the car. The Ferrari very dangerously exercised there with regards to the rear becoming unsettled. And now as we see it, Cranley-Swash making his way up into turn number 2, braking as late as he dares, braking that 100-metre board and turning the car into the middle of the road there, trying to get a bit of an angle into apex. A very nice run out of the hairpin, to be fair. That was a very smooth transition. Now making his way down the straight here from 2 to 3, and as he heads down towards the downhill braking zone, looking to the left-hand side here, coming way down the gearbox, that 100-metre board is brake marker, and he's got the temperature in the tyres and the brakes there just to nail that braking point. And that accelerator now coming through the right and kicking off what is turn number 4, flat out through here, and now into the medium speed sweep section as he comes into the Red Bull Statue Arena. He rolls the car through turn number 5, keeping it nice and composed, accelerating out, now heading down towards turn 6. Just a little dab of the brakes here, trail braking it. You want to get a nice early apex so you can stamp on the throttle and let the rear of the car be pivoted round, particularly in the Lamborghini with the engine located towards the rear and it being rear-wheel drive. And as he makes his way now into the final 2 corners, braking into the open ring corner, looking for that 50-metre ball, coming in, trail braking in, rolling the car through, and now one more corner between him and his first flying lap in this series being completed. Comes out of A1, and as he makes his way on through, what's it going to be here for Cranley-Swash as he comes across that line? Well, Nigel Stock's the one to beat so far, and Cranley-Swash crosses the line, and he's currently 8 tenths of the Nigel Stock. But to be fair, Cranley-Swash I think does want to build up a little bit of momentum here, and well, as he continues to do so, we will keep our eyes on how he continues to do as he goes deeper into this session. But as all of our drivers in the GT3 class continue to put those laps in, it is the resumption of the story in the GT3 Pro class, which is our Audi R8 GTWR Roman Grosjean Academy driver of Matt Caruana. He's already set the pace in the bar quite high, 7.5 tenths there ahead of Matthew Hodges, albeit we've got a lot of drivers in the GT3 Pro class yet to put a lap in, and we can see Matt Caruana at 29.318 as he runs off there to let other drivers on through. A lot of drivers are doing so, in fact, given the fact that it is a very crowded circuit. You can see from the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen how where all of our GT3 drivers have come out, they've actually very quickly tried to run laps around here. They haven't really thought about the spacing as much as perhaps they would like to, and therefore they are starting to trip over one another. Now in this situation, what would you do? Well, if I was in the situation of any of our drivers right now, I'd look at the track map or get a spotter to take a look at the track map for me and go, okay, it's actually quite empty around turns 1 and 2, so let's see if we can get ourselves a bit of space around there, given the fact that Tom Edmonds right now is in a very quiet situation. And to give you an idea, here is Tom Edmonds, and he's just gradually sauntering his way around. He's on an out lap right now as he makes his way up into turn number 2, and the Porsche driver here, where you can see he's taking his time and he's been smart about this because he's got a lot of space to play with. Now, is this going to cost him a little bit in the fact that slipstream is quite critical in terms of getting the ultimate qualifying lap? This will cost him to begin with, but what it does give him is the opportunity to put in a flying lap where he's got nobody in front of him, so therefore no risk of a compromised lap. The return of this, of course, will be the fact that when he does go into what will be the final stages of qualifying, he will have that challenge worrying about what will be the situation whereby he may need slipstream to get him right up there, and that will be the question. As he rolls on down and around, it is the case coming into turn number 6. Well, it does look as though Tom Edmonds now starting to build up to a lap in short order. In terms of big stories, we've got Matt Evans in P5 right now in the GT3 AM class, and well, they'll winner last time out at Daytona. When I had the chance to catch up with him down in the pit lane, he was saying to me that he's not expecting anything spectacular today, as he's not a fan of the Red Bull ring. However, his excuse is that he's recently made some significant changes to his sim racing rig, and he's still fine-tuning it, so that's why he feels he's going to be slow here. Firstly, because he's not a big fan of the circuit, but more importantly, he's transitioning to new equipment, and well, Evans definitely really started to take things up a notch at Daytona, and well, we'd expect today, whilst he may not be expecting his chances to be high, it's not going to be the case. I think he's going to be down and out. I think he's going to be in contention for the podium finishes today, if not at least the top 5. As we see it there, that's Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen having a bit of a nightmare moment there, going off at turn number 3. On exit and letting the car roll forward with the Hilliard Esport driver, switching from the BMW M4 to the Audi R8 there. An interesting change of car here, perhaps feeling that he can tame the Audi R8 as he makes his way on through into turn number 5, and as he comes on down and around, it is the case that right now, right up there, and in one of the lonely Mercedes AMG GT3s, it is Nigel Stock who is the fastest in the GT3 AM class right now, the 30.266. He's only 6 hundredths faster, I should say, not 6 tenths, goodness, 6 hundredths faster than Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen, but to be fair, that is a lifetime here at the Red Bull Ring as he makes his way down towards turn number 3, and all that Mercedes very strong in terms of the acceleration and top speed. We have seen how strong it is, and particularly last time out Daytona. Oh, goodness me, Stock runs one wheel a little bit wide there, coming out to turn number 3. On the gravel it went, and he's had to park the Prest Autosport machine up as he now looks to get it back on the road with less than 2 minutes to go. Matt Caruana comes out the pit to build up to one final qualifying lap, but I think he may have this one in the bag already, and then I say that and I have to mark my words immediately, because Altitude Esports' Tom Edmonds comes along and says it's not quite over yet. I've got 2 tenths of a gap to Matt Caruana, and I'm not going to let him run away with it, as we can see that Tom Edmonds putting in just one solid lap, and he gets it all the way out to P2 in the class provisional with 1.5 minutes to go. He will have just over one more lap to go. He'll just, I think, creep onto one more lap after this one as he rolls his way up towards turn number 2. But looking from him, we do have Maurizio Marconi making his way around right now for the DRS Esport team in the Audi R8. And, well, right now not looking too strong. He's yet to actually set a lap in this session. And Marconi, it's been a very odd story with regards to this season so far. Very strong in the season opening rounds 1 and 2, but rounds 3 and 4 really off the pace and having difficulty. And I think there were a number of instances as well, which, to be fair, he may not have been the cause of necessarily. They have disrupted his rhythm. We're hoping that Marconi can come back strong here now that we're on more continental soil. And indeed, American circuits compared to European circuits, very different in their nature. We're now looking at a circuit here today, which is all about heavy braking zones and the draft, to be fair, much like we saw at Daytona. But it's these heavy braking zones here at the Red Bull Ring which will be the big storyteller in terms of who's the master of the brakes, and that may just lead to some drives really coming through to fruition compared to others. But right now Marconi coming on around and down through turn number 5 and up towards 6, and looking very composed, I must say, is the Italian as he rolls it through turn number 6, goes nice onto the apex curve there, doesn't quite use as much curb as other drives, and I think he's worried about the fact the Audi is very sensitive to curbs, particularly raised curbs, and therefore as you make your way through turn number 6 and 7, in this case, particularly at turn 7, the apex curve is raised and slanted, and that can upset the rear balance of the Audi. And as he comes through turn 8 and down into 9 now, it's only going to be one lap from Marconi as we bring out the checkered flag for qualifying. And what's it going to be here for our GT3 Pro driver? He comes across the line, and across that time line, we get our screens updated, and it's 30.38, which puts him ahead of Lee Horn only by 700ths. So it's a difficult day in the office for Marconi, but meanwhile, I can tell you that Matt Caruana is currently making his way around, and it's not a difficult day for him. What about Tom Edmonds by comparison? He's not too far back, so these two will be some of our last drivers to come around to complete their qualifying session. Meanwhile, Lee Horn has decided to park it up. He's not happy with that lap. He's called it a day. What about Matthew Hodges here for CXR Project Black? He crossed the line in the Ferrari. He's P4 currently in class. In the GT3 Pro, he crossed the line. He does not improve. He's still 200ths off of Gavin Gardner, who's P3 and in the pit. what about Nigel Stock? Well, Nigel Stock does not improve. We've still got more drivers coming through. And Jordan Pope, in fact, P4 in the GT3 AM class in the Lamborghini Huracan. And remember, Pope last time out at Daytona really struggled on the pace, but today he's right up there in contention for a top 5. And Darren Doherty the same, as we see the Irishman making his way down towards turn number 3. But I do think his session has ended, to be fair, because we would not have gone into a lap and be this point on the lap right now. And we're hearing that Tom Edmonds has come into the pits, so that is qualifying all said and done, unless I'm mistaken, ladies and gentlemen. So it is in the LMP2 class, Chris Daines on pole, Matt Caruana on pole in the GT3 Pro class, and it is Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen who's come through at the last hour. We didn't see that on camera, but the Audi R8 driver with that switch to the Audi has come through and put it on pole in the GT3 AM class for a 30.015. That is a stellar lap there, and well, that's gone under the radar, and I think Nigel Stock right now may be wondering where on earth has that Audi suddenly come from. Well, it's the case he's now got to find a way to come back at it in the first or 2 races in that sprint race. As he rolls on through here, Nigel Stock and also Gamborg-Rasmussen both spending some time out on the circuit at the end of qualifying, I think just to simply get a tiny bit more track time in, which does delay things by a small margin, but at the same time, as we do see Nigel Stock peeling his way into the pits now, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and now we wait for the transition to the race. So as the grid gets set for our race, let's take you through that qualifying order once again. Chris Daines, overall pole position, an LMP2 class pole there for Verano Motorsport. What was in the end 4.5 tenths ahead of Gaz Williams in P2 for Next Gen Racing. Behind them, Alistair Kirk and Robert de Ceunik make up our second row. TGC Racing joined by Team Racing Netherlands on that second row. Excite Racing's Adam Delman on row at number 3 in P5. Alongside him, Next Gen Racing's Jamie Dory. And then behind them, Dan Skinner for Excite Racing. He'll be completing the rear of what is the LMP2 class. We'll then have a sizable gap to Matt Caruana there, the GTWR Roman Grosjean Academy driver. He'll be starting off the front row of the GT3 Pro class, and he'll be joined by Tom Edmonds from Altitude Esports. Behind them, Gavin Garner for Verano Motorsport, and then Matthew Hodges make up the second row of the GT3s. And then we'll have Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen, who put it on pole in the GT3 AM class there for Hilliard Esport, and it'll be the case he'll be joined on what is row at number 7 overall by Callum Regarton for Altitude Esports. Nigel Stock behind for GT3 AM class there, P2 in the class. Crest Sport Apex Tracks' Mercedes driver there is joined on what is the 8th row by Eduardo Francashim, and he will be starting P16 in the DRS Esport LMS1 Audi. Maurizio Macconi starting P17 in the DRS Esport LMS2 Audi, and he'll be joined on row number 9 by Sean Cranley-Swash, putting in what was in the end a 3rd place in qualifying on his debut for Verano Motorsports AM unit. And then we can see Lee Horn on what is P19, the Next Gen Racing Sam Case's UK driver, being joined by Jordan Pope from TGC Bottom Split Heroes. Darren Doherty, the privateer, joined by Matt Emmons on row at number 11, and then we've got Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing Sam Cases UK, just behind his teammate Joe McManus for TGC Bottom Split Heroes at P24, and there'll be Alexander Batak from Hilliard Esport and Stuart B. Taylor from TGC Racing making up our final row, our 13th and final row, as we get ready to go racing, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Red Bull Ring. But we look to the front of the field, and we'll very shortly have our LMP2 drivers going racing, and it will be to Chris Daines to once again take us racing from the front row of the grid. And it's lights out and away we go here for our LMP2 class drivers in the sprint race. Oh, goodness me, and already into the wall. That is Alistair Kirk with a major moment right at the start of the race. Well, with Alistair Kirk into the wall, he's come back on track now, but that is a nightmare situation. I do believe Adam Delman involved in that contact as well between the two drivers. That was a very early incident. I'm not exactly sure what's happened there, but with them having that incident, as our drivers make the way on up into what is turn at number 2, you can see Chris Daines having to go very defensive into the opening corner, and as he does so, he's got Gareth Williams going around the outside, and Gaz Williams, as he makes his way in the long run down towards turn number 3, now he's up into lead, and Robert de Ceunik comes on through as well, and we have had a chop and change already in the LMP2 class, and it's not even the first half of the lap complete as they make the way round, and Jamie Dory up there as well, and well, Chris Daines has been mobbed. Meanwhile, in the GT3 classes, I can tell you, as they make the way on through, it is Matt Caruana who's at the head of the GT3 Pro class, but he has got Tom Edmonds hunting him ferociously as they make the way on down. A little bit further back as our time screen's reloaded there, we can see it's the case going up the inside for P3 in the class. That is Matthew Hodges battling with Gavin Gardner as they roll on through turn number 3 and make the way up towards 5. but also Eduardo Francescin not too far behind, and Nigel Stock has found his way up into the lead of the GT3 AM class. He's got ahead of Gambol Rasmussen through the opening corners and made that move count. So it has been the case, quite a few changes in the order on this opening lap in both the LMP class and also the GT3 class, and now as they all roll their way through, you can see already on the circuit, man, just how far up the road or LMPs are. As we see is that, my goodness, there we've got a car across circuit, and that is Callum Regarton doing a little bit of rally cross there, getting it horrifically wrong, coming out turn number 7, and behind them we've got Matthew Addy, and well, he has got his teammate Matt Evans tucked in behind him. Addy up the inside there of what is Alexander Batak, and Alexander Batak has gained a plethora of places. He's gained 7 places already in this race in the overall standings, and now he's looking to gain 1 more as they go on to their second tour of the circuit and race conditions. As they make the way out towards turn 1 here, Batak up the inside versus Addy, but he backs out in the end there. It's the case 2 do not go into 1 at turn number 1. You've got to make the move on the inside and take it. It's Adam Delmont into the pits and turns there, I believe. That is Stuart Taylor who's had a spin as he, oh goodness me, and that going into him as we also see that coming out the pits by the LMPs. That is Rizzio Marconi, and all 3 drivers there involved in a nasty crash. As meanwhile we come back to the front of what is the GT3 class, and we can see Nigel Stock here still holding on to that lead in the GT3 AMs in particular. But we look from them, meanwhile, all the way up towards the LMPs, and you see it is the case as they come towards the end of lap number 2. Well, Gaz Williams, he wanted to make a good start, and he's made it with Robert de Ceunik tucked in behind him. Chris Daines is now P3. He's found his way back into that P3 position. He's got ahead of Jamie Dory as they make the way across that timeline. It is the case, you can see Robert de Ceunik already looking at a potential move for the lead here. This is not the form that would go according to what we've seen in the script over the opening 4 rounds, and we love to see it. We have got Robert de Ceunik and Gaz Williams both really pushing hard here, and now the pressure is on Daines to try and respond. But to be fair, the Danishman, very smart in terms of his racecraft, and he may right now just be looking at the 2 in front of him thinking, I'm just going to follow you because I've got the double toe and I'll make it work a little bit later on in terms of finding a way on through. But meanwhile, we must cut from them back to what is Matthew Addy, and I believe I'm hearing in the way that Matthew Addy has retired already. He's listed as out on our timing screens, and that is very unfortunate. Has provided a lot of drivers, and particularly Matt Emmons now, who is his main rival in the championship at this point in time, and the GT3 Championship has gained a place as a result. It's not the way he would have wanted to gain it, but I believe that Matthew Addy has had a retirement due to engine failure on the car, which is very unfortunate, as we had a spin there in the rear of the picture for Darren Doherty, and oh my goodness, the Red Bull ring produces a lot of excitement, and it's the case, we're not even a third of the way into this race, it's already produced a huge amount of excitement, as meanwhile, we look from Darren Doherty all the way out to Gavin Gardner, who is P9 overall, P4 in the GT3 Pro class, and we ride on board with him here as he's chasing after Matthew Hodges in the hunt for what is the final step of the podium in the GT3 Pro class. They're caught up behind Tom Edmonds, however, who's fallen away from Matt Caruana, and right now they are trying to hunt down the second place man as they roll through and up into turn number 5. Of course, it's Ferrari on Ferrari here as they make the way through turn number 5, and ahead of them is the Porsche Tom Edmonds, and as they roll them through, the first 2 left-handers going from 5 and up into 6. It is the case, I think Gardner just settled into a rhythm here. He's got to think about the fact that he does have Eduardo Francescin behind him as they make the way on through, and Francescin in that Audi is inching closer lap on lap as well, so he's not got forever to try and make this pass happen. He won't want to put undue pressure on, because any pressure he does put on that he can't capitalise on, he'll lose momentum to Tom Edmonds. As they make the way out to the final corner with the opening 5 minutes of this race complete by the time they get up to turn 1 this time. We look from them up towards what is Chris Daines, and Chris Daines right now, he's down in P3, battling with Jamie Dory, and only moments ago Daines had tried to make the move of a position versus, well in fact what was Jamie Dory had tried coming past Chris Daines, and let's take a look back at what happened. Well, this is in the run out to turn 2 and heading down towards turn 3, and Jamie Dory getting a very good run up the inside here versus Daines. So you can see on the right hand side of the pair as they make their way into the braking zone for 3, but as they came down, Daines just able to sweep the car around. Great racing respect shown between the 2 drivers here, and in the end it was Daines who had the run around onto the inside through 4 and up into 5, and Dory backed out of it there 9. It's the case, if you try and run it round wide at turn number 5, you normally understeer off circuit. We've seen that time and time again, but return to live pictures now, and it is the case that Daines, he's behind Robert de Ceunik, but he's not able to make enough ground on de Ceunik, and in return Gaz Williams is being given breathing room. Remember, these LMP2 machines pick up the toe very, very strong there. They're very sensitive to the downforce, and as they make their way in towards turn number 2, it is the case that Daines having to go defensive again, but there are multiple lines to the turn 2 hairpin. It is the case you can take that tight line and still get a good exit. You just have to park the car on apex and push it through in first gear, and that's exactly what Daines has done there, and he's staying right with Robert de Ceunik as they make the way down into turn number 3. But as they roll them down, I can tell you it is the case that Gavin Gardner all over the back of what is Matthew Hodges in front of him, and will they have fallen off of the battle for the top 2? Instead they are battling for that P3 position, and behind them you can see Nigel Stock here, GT3 AM leader. Well, he's broken away from Stefan Gamble Grasmussen and actually just set the fastest lap in class by a considerable margin, and Nigel Stott lets some players there. Cameron Garton come through the GT3 PRO trucks. He's not fighting him. There's no point for battling with a driver of another class, whether it's a driver class or alternatively a car class, and as Nigel Stock here stays in the toe of what is Cameron Garton, he should be feeling confident now if he can keep this up. He's well on his way to victory, but of course saying it is one thing, executing it is something entirely different, and he will know that as many as all of our other drivers will as he makes his way out 2 and down towards 3. But as we look from here at 2 ways a little bit further back, we see Joe McManus here, the TUC Bottom Split Heroes driver from Ireland, making his way out to 2 and down towards 3 here, and he and Jordan Pope, to be fair, running nose to now, P6, P7 for TGC Bottom Split Heroes, the team, and as they make their way through, both drivers there looking good so far as they come down into the braking zone for turn 3 and looking to get some good points on the board. But meanwhile, looking back up to the battle for P2 in the LMP PRO class here, we can see Chris Daines looking to move on to Ceunik. It's materialising, he goes up the inside here as we reach the halfway point of the race time, and as they make their way through 3, well, they both give each other space, a little bit of a disconnection there for Robert de Ceunik, but he's still in the race, and as they make their way through 4 and up into 5, de Ceunik's going to hold the inside now. Will Daines dare to dream to go around the outside? No, he backs off and he looks at the cutback here. This is smart stuff from Daines, and it puts him on the inside up into 6. Now, can he capitalise and seal the deal through 7? I think he's not going to be able to. He has to give the space to de Ceunik, and as they roll him through the corners here, you can see now that Jamie Dory's trying to get in the mix as well. He wants to try and make this a three-way battle, but as de Ceunik takes the lead position, they're coming through 8. He goes a little bit deep into the corner. Chris Daines on his inside as they come through 9. This is Ryan Williams' time to break away. But to be fair, we love to see it, and you can see Jamie Dory now. It's going to be 3 wide as they come across the timeline, going into turn 1. Now, surely one of them's got to back out. Dory backs out immediately. Robert de Ceunik decides, you know what, I'm not going to try and go for it around the outside. There's no point. And as a result of that, you can see now also there, that is Dan Skinner in the background of the picture who's caught up to this as they make their way up the hill towards turn 2. And as they make their way into the braking zone, Daines has now got to go defensive as they roll it on the brakes, and well, Daines gets it hooked on the brakes nicely, but he's gone a little bit deep, and as a result now Robert de Ceunik will try and come back as they make the way down towards turn number 2, and they've got the GT3 traffic now to contend with, and this is where the problems start. This is what Daines was worried about as they make the way down to 3. You can see Darren Doherty there literally staying on the outside line and giving the space to the LMPs as they all try and come through, and they've got a lot more GT3s to come past right now. As we look to the blimp camera, and this will give you a perspective, as you can see that is Daines, the yellow, blue, black Verano Motorsport machine. He's behind the 2 TUC bottom split cars as they make their way through. Oh, goodness me! And Daines having to come through a little bit of muscle. And to be fair to McManus, I don't think he expected Daines to come through that quickly. And as they make their way down towards turn number 8, it's going to be a learning experience for some of our AM drivers in particular, as we see Daines making his way. He's going to look up the inside here of Matt Emmons, who looks to make the apex, but he has to keep the steering lock open because of the fact that Robert de Ceunik's all over the back of him as they make their way across the timeline, and Robert de Ceunik's going to go in with a chance here as they make their way down towards turn 1. There's a little bit of contact as they go into the opening corner, and as they make their way through, Robert de Ceunik with the bravery there of the Sentry goes up the inside of the Team Racing Netherlands driver. Well, we saw it in the GT3s last season where he did a 2-for-1 special into turn 1. He loves turn 1, but it's not going to be let go anytime soon. Daines is coming back. This is cracking stuff between the 2 rivals, and as they make their way through turn 2, you can see it's the case they're still side by side, and Jamie Dory literally just trying to pepper his nose in there to say, can I play 2, as they make their way down towards turn number 3, and you can see it's the case that Robert de Ceunik, every time he has to either go defensive versus Dory up the inside of Daines, and he goes in deep on the brakes, and we can see there it's the case that Cranley Swash just staying out of the way there. there. The Verano Motorsport debutant not getting in the way of the battle, and Daines holds the inside up into turn number 5, and as they roll them through, they give each other just enough space. There's literally a hair's width between the two of them as they come down through 6 and head up towards 7, but in the end Daines finally holds the position firm. And now can Jamie Dory capitalise here on the battle, because it's taken a lot out of what is Robert de Ceunik's pace rolling up towards turn 8. He looks at it, there's no way through here. My goodness, I think we'll finally get a breather in that battle as they roll on through turn 8 and down towards 9, but Daines really having to work hard in order to hold on to that position, and now he's got to go hunting after Gaz Williams, who's almost 2 seconds up the road, but Williams is able to navigate the traffic, and as a result that gap can fluctuate very quickly. We will wait and see. Meanwhile, we look from them to the battle for the GT3 Pro lead, and this has been going back and forth. There's been a number of exchanges. You see Tom Edmonds looking to the outside here versus Matt Caruana, the Audi driver of Caruana, defending versus Edmonds, but Edmonds goes for the smart and sensible cutback here as they make the way out of turn 2. Now, do keep in mind, of course, that the Porsche is the slightest of the cars here in terms of that straight line speed. The Audi's not too much faster, but it just has a slight edge, particularly in the acceleration game, and as they make the way down, that's why Edmonds went for the cutback. It's given him the momentum to go up the inside. Can he park it on apex? He goes a little bit deep, but Caruana can't get on the throttle in time, and Gaz Williams is going to say, well, I'm coming through, gents, you two can fight in a minute. As Caruana looks the inside, he makes Edmonds have to hold the inside line, and Caruana being very smart with his placement of the car. They're trying to get Edmonds to overcommit to the inside, where the car's naturally going to understeer, but Edmonds responded very well by braking just on the threshold and keeping it there as they roll on through. And now as they make their way down through the right-hander and heading up towards turn number 8, it is the case that Caruana, I think, is going to have to breathe a little bit, wait for those LMPs to come through and then go again, but he's only got 3 minutes. He hasn't got long to try and retake the lead, and I think Edmonds has timed this really well, because you can see how the LMP cars, as they come through, are providing some space to Edmonds here as they make their way onto another lap. 3 minutes to go, and it's the case that Caruana flashing his lights. They're trying to get into Edmonds' head, and Matthew Hodges, to be fair, not too far behind it. He could potentially steal away second place if it plays out the way he wants it to, as he makes his way down towards his turn number 2 once again. And from one CXR Project Black driver to another, we just heard in the Facebook chat that Edward Lack, the CXR Project Black driver in the LMP2 Pro class, will be taking part in the feature race, which is great to hear. Great to hear that, Ed, and we look forward to seeing you out on the circuit in a short while. But right now, Hodges representing and flying the flag for CXR Project Black. He's in with a chance here of definitely a podium, if not potentially trying to snatch the win or a second place. We will wait and see what he does do as he makes his way down in towards turn number 3. But as he comes down on the brakes, we do look back up to the battle for what is the lead of the LMP2 Pro class. You can see the flashing lights there of Gaz Williams, and he wants, to be fair, to get past Stuart Taylor as soon as possible because of Chris Daines right now, who is closing gradually. And they've only got 2 more laps after this one to go, have our LMP2 class drivers. But you can see here how Chris Daines really trying to get the move, and he's trying to drop Robert de Ceunik. De Ceunik's like a bad rash, he just will not go away. And well, it's the case that de Ceunik fired up here on the European continental soil of Austria as he makes his way across that timeline in short order. Penultimate lap for these guys, they make the way down towards turn number 1. Has Williams got enough here? Because that draft for Daines is going to be sensational now, and for Robert de Ceunik even more so. He's going to get a double toe here in a car that loves the draft, and as he makes his way up towards turn 2, we will wait and see whether it is the case that de Ceunik's going to be looking for the move. I don't think so this time. I think if I was in de Ceunik's shoes, I'd let this lap be Daines' lap to try and close up to Williams to put the pressure on the final lap. Because you've got to be tactical if you're in de Ceunik's position. Do you want to battle for P2, or do you want to battle for a potential win, which you could still weigh right at the end of? De Ceunik will be aware of that as they make the way down towards turn number 3. But meanwhile, looking from there, Matt Caruana going around the outside here into turn 2 versus Tom Edmonds, but being on that outside line has its difficulties, and Matt Caruana couldn't get the throttle down without respecting the fact that Edmonds was always going to be there on his inside. Great racing room shown, but this is where the Audi just has a small advantage on the straightaway compared to the Porsche. As they make the way down to the braking zone, Edmonds is going to have to really go deep. He does so into 3. He holds the inside. He holds onto our lead for now. And we can see there the two of them making their way through turn number 4, side by side in the run. Now they come up towards 5. And this time Caruana's on the inside. He can come back for the move here. It is the case. He will get it done as he makes his way through. But he'll have one more lap, I believe, because as he comes out the final corner, it's the white flag by literally 2 seconds. And now Gaz Williams goes on to the final lap, and Chris Daines has just set the fastest lap in the LMP2 Pro class, a 19.9 there, the fastest lap we've seen all day. Faster than his pole, not his pole, yeah, it was his pole lap, my apologies, in qualifying. And Daines is flying. He's all over the back of Gaz Williams on this final lap as de Ceunik has fallen back a bit. Daines is going to go to the outside here, and Williams goes nice and late on the brakes here, but he goes overly deep. Williams misses his braking point and understeers deep into the corner. Now as he returns here, this will be de Ceunik's chance, and just a bit of pressure on Gaz Williams has caused him to make that error. And as they make the way down towards turn number 3, it is the case that de Ceunik's going to want to capitalise here. He'll want that P2, feels though he's done the right to deserve it as they make the way through turn number 3, but he can't find a way through. Williams makes sure he has to take a wide line. Meanwhile, in that battle for the lead of the GT3 Pro class, I can tell you that Caruana is still holding on, but he has got Tom Edmonds and Matthew Hodges very close behind him. And meanwhile, in the GT3 AM class, Nigel Stock is 3 seconds clear of Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen, who has Cranley Swash behind him very close. As you can see here, we cut to them briefly, but we do have to cut away from them, folks, because right now, Chris Daines making his way into turn number 8 was expecting it to be difficult. It was a difficult start, but he's made his way back into the lead. And as he comes through the final corner, that's Mizio McConey with a bit of an errant car, but he comes out the final corner as Chris Daines, and the Renault Motorsport driver wins in the sprint at the Red Bull Ring, just ahead of Gareth Williams and Robert de Ceunik. A fantastic freeway battle there in the LMP2 class, and well, it has to be said, it could have gone any which way for the three of them. Jamie Dory P4, Dan Skinner P5, and then meanwhile in the GT3 Pro class, it is the case that Matt Caruana has held on for the final 2 corners. Can he make it to the finish in the lead? He's got one more corner to go here. Has the Audi driver. He comes on down and around. As he makes his way out to the A1 corner, it will be Matt Caruana who takes the win in the GT3 Pro class. 4 tenths ahead of Tom Edmonds in P2 and Matthew Hodges in P3. A brilliant freeway battle for the podium between these three. Eduardo Frankishin P4, Callum Regarton will come across in P5, and then Nigel Stock will come home your winner in the GT3 AM class. I told you this man was here to stay with regards to picking up more wins, and he's done it ahead of Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen, P2 in the GT3 AMs, and then Sean Cranley Swash on his debut tonight in the AM class, picking up a P3 in the Renault Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan. The team will be very pleased with that, and I'm sure there'll be a big grin on his face ahead of Alexander Batak P4 and Matt Evans P5. Well, Evans said he wasn't expecting spectacular results tonight, but a P5 for him, and that's going to set him up quite well going into the reverse grid feature, no doubt about that. But my goodness, what a fantastic way to open up proceedings here at the Red Bull Ring in the Apex Racing Academy lobby. And as we see Chris Daines, and what is there just behind him, I believe that is Robert de Ceunik coming in. These two, I think it's the case. We're only just seeing the start of what is going to be one great rivalry here at the Red Bull Ring between the two of them as they make the way on around. But meanwhile, a driver who we didn't see too much of after the opening couple of laps, Nigel Stock. He started second in class, found his way into the lead, and well, the Mercedes driver here, he's one of a very limited number of Mercedes taking part in the GT3 classes this season, and well, it is the case, the German machinery has got some life in it as the Englishman makes his way down through turn number 6, and no doubt he'll be pleased with that. I think Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen as well, the Dane will take a lot of motivation from the fact switching to the Audi. It worked out very well for him in this race. P2 in his first race in the car, and we can expect plenty more from him, I think, going into the feature. And well, the Hilliard Esports outfit will be happy that they've made up for what was a difficult time at Daytona 2 weeks ago, with already a podium finish in the AM class, and Batak not too far behind in P4. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a look away from our drivers, and let's bring you those race results, subject to any assurance inquiries, of course. So in the end, after 15 minutes of racing here at the Red Bull Ring in the opening sprint race in the Apex Racing Academy lobby, Chris Daines taking the win for Renault Motorsport there in the LMP class by only 5 tenths of a second ahead of Gareth Williams in P2. Robert de Ceunik completing the LMP2 podium there, only a further what was in the end 2 tenths off the back of Gareth Williams. And then we can see Jamie Dory and Dan Skinner completing their top 5. Then in P6 overall, and our winner in the GT3 Pro class, Matt Caruana there. P6, the Roman Grosjean Academy GTWR driver had a colossal battle with Tom Edmonds and Matthew Hodges for the podium places. Eduardo Frankishin, the best of the rest there. A great result for him for DRS Esport LMS1, and Callum Regarton completing the top 5 there for the GT3 Pros in 10th place. Nigel Stock P11 overall, our winner in the GT3 AM class, ahead of Lee Horn. And then at P2 in the AM class was Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen, followed by Sean Cranley Swash, P14 overall, P3 in the GT3 AM class. And behind them, Alexander Patak P15, Matt Evans P16, Joe McManus P17, Jordan Pope P18, The two TGC at bottom split Heroes drivers there putting in a good set of results to kick off their proceedings at the Red Bull Ring. And now drivers who had a bit more of a difficult race, who followed a bit later on, with Darren Doherty in the end with that difficult moment, seeing him finish P19, Gavin Gardner P20 with, I believe, a mistake out on circuit or an incident out on circuit, Alistair Kurt P21, Stuart P. Taylor P22, Maurizio Marconi P23, Adam Delmont P24 with that nasty incident at the start between Delmont and Kirk, I believe, Matthew Addy P25, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is our classification of the sprint race at the Red Bull Ring here in the Apex Racing Academy lobby. Well, we will be back in approximately 10 minutes or so for the build-up to the feature race, but until then, don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is round number 5, the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship, brought to you here at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and we have got one more race on the schedule very shortly. That is the feature race, 60 minutes of frantic action. If the sprint has delivered the overtaking and battles, we can only imagine what the feature race is going to deliver in short order. Until then, we'll see you very shortly. Don't go anywhere. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to the feature race here at the Red Bull Ring in the Apex Racing Academy sponsored lobby for the Proto GT3 Championship. And we saw a brief word there from Apex Racing Academy, of course, not just a set-up shop, a service for professional coaching where you can improve your racing and racecraft on iRacing with professional coaches, group coaching sessions, and a load of data as provided in partnership with STK Gaming. Of course, there's no need to go hunting for setup files. The data's right there when you turn the simulator on, which is the way you want it to be. Indeed, the way our drivers want it to be right now as they build up to this feature race is they want to be able to get the maximum possible point score out of this way. Indeed, have their strategies nailed on to the specifics, because around here a good strategy is going to benefit you massively, given the fact that particularly in our LMP2 class is the case that if you come out the pits at the wrong time and come out to a load of GT3 traffic, that could be a whole advantage or a whole battle you're trying to set up completely scuppered simply because you catch the traffic at the wrong time and then you have to go slow whilst trying to find your way past. At the same time though, for our GT3 drivers, it is the case that as they go into the pits and come out the pits, they'll be looking to potentially get the jump. We call that the undercut, of course. They pit before their rivals, or the overcut, they pit after their rivals, and well, if they time at the wrong time, they may end up losing out some key places as they make their way into their second and final stint of this race. But right now, all of our drivers are making their way on around, and we do see a Jamie Dory here making his way down in towards what is turn number 3 as he rolls on through. And the Jamie Dory battling at the all the way through what was the sprint race in the LMP2 class. The next gen racing driver there missing out on the podium in the end, but definitely showing a lot of pace when he was running close behind Robert de Ceunik and also what was Chris Daines and Gaz Williams. And I think he'll take a bit of momentum from that. He'll take a bit of motivation and encouragement from that to know he is on the pace with them. And Jamie Dory, to be fair, a stronger driver in the longer races. He seems to come alive as the race duration increases, and we can expect great things from him, I think, in the 1 hour race that's about to come in just over 3 minutes time. But as our drivers make the one around right now in this pre-warm-up session, if you will, where everyone's being given the opportunity to join the race lobby. We do appreciate your patience, by the way, ladies and gents, with regards to the fact we are running approximately 5 minutes behind schedule right now, but of course that's because our administrators, as soon as the sprint race is finished and the lobby closes, they have to set up all the grid, all the reverse grid and planning for the feature race. So they've got a lot of hard work, but indeed too, what is in particular, Matt Emmons, Mark Sykes, Lee Horn and the rest of the Next Gen Racing team running this series. They've put in a lot of time and effort, and we do appreciate everything that they do, and they bring all this fantastic racing action to you, as we see Dan Skinner here making his way across the timeline. And well, it was the case, the Excite Racing driver in the end battling with Jamie Dory for the majority of what was the sprint race, but he'll be thinking about now how he can potentially take that fight a little bit further on up the order and potentially get in there with regards to battling with the likes of Williams and also Robert de Ceunik. As he comes them down, we do see Adam Delmont here as well. Adam Delmont, of course, involved in that incident early on in the race and the sprint very early on, and that was with Alistair Kirk. And I'm sorry to report, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, that we will not be seeing the TGC racing driver take part in the second race tonight. Alistair Kirk, unfortunately, with the damage that the car's taken, not able to get the car back out on circuit, so we will be 1 car down. But with him having to retire in the build-up to the feature race, we do have the arrival that was announced in the Facebook chat of Edward Lack here, the CXR Project Black driver, who makes his way around right now, and he, of course, will be looking to do everything he can to have a solid race. Indeed, all our drivers looking to maximise things as best as they possibly can. As he makes his way on through here 1.5 minutes ago, we already had a bit of feedback from you guys and girls in the chats with regards to the qualifying session, the trialled split qualifying session where the LMPs went out on circuit for the first 10 minutes and they also had to come into the pits and finish their laps before the GT3s could go out. And we can see particularly feedback there from KT Eames, and we're very grateful to the feedback, by the way, guys and girls. It is the case that if you do want to give us further feedback on how things are run, such as qualifying, and well, we'll see what we can do to accommodate it. Indeed, trialling out the new qualifying session and saying that the session seems to be a little bit more in the favour, I should say, of the LMPs. But if we don't try it, we'll never know how to adjust it and get it right. And indeed, that is the case. We've got to try things. Do not knock things before you try them, as my mother always used to say, and I completely agree with that adage, no doubt about that. And we see Matthew Addy there taking a little bit of a rallycross line-esque, well, really rallycross-esque line, I should say, in order to stay clear of Matthew Hodges, and also, I believe, behind him there, that is Robert de Ceunik just coming on through. as our drivers make their way on around right now. It was the case in that qualifying session. I think our GT3 drivers, whilst they had less time, had a very easy time building their way up to momentum, albeit they had a limited number of laps, and the LMP drivers definitely had a huge amount of track to themselves, and they were grateful for it as they make their way on around. But indeed, I agree with you there, Katie, in the Facebook chat. It's great to see Ed Lack taken to the circuit. Of course, a venerable driver. He's been with us since the early days of the GT3 Championships here on iRacing with NXTGEN Racing. Very friendly face and a very determined driver for CXR Project Black. And what can he do in this feature, given the fact he'll be starting at the back of the LMP PRO class, as he did not reach the checkered flag, didn't take part in the sprint race. We'll have to wait and see, but now we do wait for all of our drivers to go racing as the grid is about to be formed and we get ready to go racing for an hour here at the Red Bull Ring. So let's take you through that grid once more. So, in the LMP Pro class, and at the very front of the overall grid, it will be Dan Skinner from Excite Racing, who starts up reverse grid pole position there in the LMP Pro class, with Jamie Dory alongside him from NXTGEN Racing. On row number 2, Robert de Ceunik and Gaz Williams, and then it will be behind them Chris Daines picking up that win, of course, in the sprint race, and the reverse grid will mean that he starts P5. Alongside him, Adam Delmont and Edward Lack will be behind, completing what is the LMP Pro grid there, with Delmont and Lack not classified from the results of the sprint race, mean that they are not included in the reverse grid for the feature. Meanwhile, in the GT3 Pro class, and indeed the GT3s overall, remember they are reversed as a whole, not in terms of driver class. Maurizio Marconi there will be lined up in what is P8. Behind him, Stuart P. Taylor, the AM driver, he takes what is the GT3 AM pole, if you will. And he'll be lining up in P9, and it'll be Gavin Gardner alongside him in row number 5, with Darren Doherty and Jordan Pope making up row number 6. On row number 7, Joe McManus and Matt Evans in P14. Then we have Alexander Patak P15 on row number 8, and he's joined by Sean Cranley-Swash. He'll be looking to make it 2 out of 2 tonight on the podium if he can, as Lack has jumped to the pits. Edward Lack over here has jumped to the pits. Stefan Gamble Rasmussen lines up P17 with Lee Horn alongside him in P18 on row number 9, with Nigel Stock and Callum Regarton on at the 10th row there. Eduardo Frankishin, the GT3 Pro driver, a great result in what was the sprint, looking to make it 2 out of 2 here in the feature. Matthew Hodges alongside him on that 11th row. Tom Edmonds and Matt Caruana share row number 12. And then on the final row, Matthew Addy and Morton S. Oosterhuis. Well, with that, we do look now to our field, making their way around. It is time for us to go racing once again, and we look to what will be the combination of Jamie Dory and Dan Skinner as they take us away for another hour of racing. Lights down, away we go here for race number 2 at the Red Bull Ring, and immediately Jamie Dory getting the jump now, and Dan Skinner as they go 3 wide up into turn 1, up the inside as well. That's Robert de Ceunik. He can't make the heroics work a second time, the time we visited Red Bull Ring, given the fact he tried to go up the inside there and make it a 2 for 1, but in the end has had to back off. But as they roll on through, we do look to our GT3s, and we can see Gavin Gardner going up the inside already of Stuart Taylor, trying to get a move, because McConey's going to be given a lot of breathing space here as they all come through, but everybody's made it safely for the opening corner this time around. Albeit at the rear of the pitch, you can see Matt Caruana 3 wide here, and Matthew Hodges, and also the GT3 AM driver of what is, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that's Gamble Rasmussen, as they all come into the braking zone here. Darren Doherty coming up on the inside as well. In fact, he's on the outside, as we can see there. It is the case the TGC Bottom Split Heroes driver Joe McManus battling with him as they come on through. But meanwhile, Matt Evans has made a very good start. He's up into P2 already as they make their way down towards turn number 3, and everybody scrambling for position nice and early on here as they make their way on down. But a lot of the GT3 pros having to scythe their way between the AMs, as we see Lee Horn looking for a double as he comes down into turn number 3. Going on the inside there of both what was, I believe, Cranley Swash and also Alexander Patak. He makes it count, and Caruana is tucked in behind him as they roll on through into turn number 5. But we look from them up towards our LMP2 drivers very shortly. But before we do, we can see Caruana trying to go all the way around the outside. That's brave stuff from Caruana versus what is there. I do believe that's Alexander Patak, but Patak wasn't going to give him the space any time of the day, so he's trying to hold on to the position. And Matt Caruana now, I think, a little bit too bold to go for that move early on as they make their way down towards turn number 8. But we look from the GT3s, we can see Caruana looking for the move on Leon. In fact, just for a cut away, he's going to go for the move up the inside Leon. That's for position. P4 in class, and he gets it done as he comes on through. but we look from the GT3s to the LMP2s, and we can see here it's Jamie Dory leading with Robert de Ceunik just behind him, and immediately Gaz Williams up the inside of both ways, Chris Daines and also Dan Skinner. Skinner dropping down the order, and Gaz Williams on a mission here to come on through as he makes his way down towards turn number 3, and well, he's going to have Chris Daines up his inside as we're heading to Eduardo Frankenstein. Has had a moment earlier on circuit. We'll take a look at that in short order, but we can see right now Williams is here to stay, and he wants to be ahead of Chris Daines. He does not want to let the Dane get ahead as they make the way down to turn number 5, and as they come down to the corner, Jamie Dory there had the fear of Robert de Ceunik trying to siphon up the inside as they make the way on through, but no way through this time as they come down through left-hander at turn number 6. But meanwhile, in the GT3 class, we can see Maurizio Macconi just running away with things up front with where's Gavin Gardner there now finally clear of the AM driver of Stuart Taylor, and he can start to build up some momentum and potentially hunt down Macconi. But meanwhile, Lee Horn is being mobbed further back, we can tell you, and he's just been mugged by Matthew Hodges for another position. As you see Edward Lack trying to cut his way through the GT3s here and starting from the pit lane. A lot of dust on circuit, it should be pointed out, a huge amount of dust, and well spotted there by Billy Goboy in the YouTube chat. We have got dust mostly coating the circuit surface right now. Perhaps there's quite a bit of a high wind here, or somebody's pulled some dust over from the sprint race, but regardless, that's going to be a factor for our drivers to deal with. As we see here, Sean Cranley-Swash trying to hold on to the back of what is Darren Doherty here, and also he's battling Matt Caruana. Now, of course, for Cranley-Swash, he'll only have been briefed as of today who's in his class and who's not. He will have done some studying, but now it's going to be the theory test with regards to who is in his class and who's not. He's got to remember it as he comes on out the final corner, and they all make the way on through. But we take a look back at what happened only moments ago to Eduardo Frankenstein. Here we can see the DRS Esports Elements 1 truck coming up into turn 1 on his inside there, unless I'm mistaken. I think that's Tom Edmonds into the corner. He went, I think he lost it under his own momentum, and you can see that how everybody had to take evasive action, but Frankenstein getting it wrong, and well, that has cost him very dearly. But Audi a very sensitive rear end, and he just overcooked it under turning, and as they make the way up into turn 2 now, it is the case the battling continues, and Matt Caruana comes past Darren Doherty. That's a change of position overall, not in class, and the pro driver gets past the AM in short order as they now make the way down towards turn number 3 as they come rolling on down into the braking zone very shortly. You can see a little bit further back, Cranley-Swash there's got Matthew Hodges going up his inside as they make the way into that braking zone. Hodges coming on through, and meanwhile we look from them to our race leader, and that's the overall leader of Robert de Ceunik. He's leading the LMP2 class, and as he makes his way through the right hander here, it is the case that we can see Jamie Dory looking to try and hang on to the back of him as they roll on through. But right now it does look as though de Ceunik has got a little bit of an advantage. He's taken the lead of the class, and now he's got to try and do everything he can to break away. But of course, if he uses a bit too much fuel here, it may mean that he's going to spend more time in the pits later on. Let's take a look at the move for the lead only moments ago. So you can see here it was into turn 1, and de Ceunik loves this corner. The dust coming off the car, however, up the inside, and Jamie Dory to be found a little bit of elbows out there from de Ceunik, and I think de Ceunik would argue he had the right to the line. And as they made their way up towards turn number 2, Jamie Dory came out the draft nice and early to look for the move up the outside. They made the way into the braking zone, and as they did, de Ceunik covered it off nicely. Jamie Dory looked to the return, but there's no way de Ceunik was going to give him that inside cutback, and that is how they changed places. As we now look back to the live picture, you can see de Ceunik is trying to break away, but meanwhile Jamie Dory has now got Gaz Williams, his teammates of course, and Chris Daines, all 3 drivers coming together for P2 as they make the way down into turn number 8 once again here. Only 5 minutes this race complete so far. We've got tons of time remaining. It's by no means all said and done, but we have got a lot to decipher with regards to strategy and also overall race pace as they make the way onto another lap. And Daines right now, I think, being a little bit passive in terms of looking for the move. But talking to someone looking for the move here is the case the 2 TGC drivers of Stuart Taylor and Joe McManus changing places. And Stuart Taylor under pressure from McManus, they make the way through. And Matt Edmonds goes between the 2 of them here, trying to find a pass on the globe. He goes around the outside of what is Joe McManus, but this is very daring stuff. He runs a little bit wider and kicks some more dust up into the air. That will make its way onto the circuit, no doubt. That wins where he's seeing. But you can see Edmonds is trying to hold outside to inside through 6 and 7, but he has to back out in the end as we ride on board here with Matt Edmonds. He makes his way down into what is turn number 8. New onboard camera as of today, and as he rolls the car through the corner here, we've just got the camera over his shoulder. It is the case looking very close indeed as he hunts after that 2nd place in the AM class. Well, is he going to be able to find it? That will be the challenge for him at this point in time. I do think that Evans has just got to be a little bit patient, and he'll find that move in a short order if he does, as he rolls into another corner here. Of course, that Porsche is going to languish a little bit on the straights by comparison. This is where the Audi can go on the offensive, but you can see The fact that Manus has actually got a better run out the corner by comparison as they make the way up towards turn number 2. And as they go up the hill here, I think Evans has got to think about the longer game at this point. He has got 1.5 second advantage, Darren Doherty in P4 behind him, so he doesn't have to worry about rearward pressure at this time. Well, I say that, and then we get a face full of Matthew Hodges there who says, don't mind if I do, I'll cut the inside. And then following him through, that is Tom Edmonds making his way up as well. My goodness, Tom Edmonds making it a two-way pass to the GT3 Pros and the AM driver. And now as he comes into the braking zone here, Edmonds gaining that overall track position. But as they come through behind, a little bit further back, we do have the battle growing here with Nitrostock chasing after Cranley Swash as they make the way in towards turn number 5. We say hello in the Twitch chat there to David Buege, of course the driver who raced in the Next Gen ACC series. It's great to have you tuning in tonight, David. I hope you're doing well and asking the question, why is the track so dusty? I'm not 100% sure myself. I think we've got a bit of wind building up on the circuit, and also I think some of the dust that's come off of the circuit from in the sprint race has made its way onto the circuit, and that's going to be a change for our drivers as they've made the way around. We are hearing, by the way, that Matthew Addy has had a bit of a major moment only moments ago, and Matthew Addy all the way down P10 in class. What happened to him? Let's take a look. Well, this was only moments ago for the Next Gen Racing with Sam Case's UK drive. P2 in the GT3 AM class going into tonight. As he made his way into turn 1, he's just gone way too aggressive on the steering lot there, and the car's come around and said no you don't, and it's taken him for a spin. He's getting himself back at speed, but Matthew Addy has had a very difficult day here at the Red Bull Ring so far. It is being very unkind to him this circuit, and well, it is the case. He will be considering this one, I think, as a bit of a drop score round, given the fact all of our drivers are entitled to one drop score in the series as they make the way on through. It's the best 11 out of 12 rounds that count, and Addy will be adding this one to the drop score if he has not already taken the drop score elsewhere. But as I try to make the way through, now that we are approximately almost 10 minutes into this race, we're 8.5 minutes to be precise, is the case we are now starting to see things calm down a little bit. Well, the only overtakes we're really starting to see now are where pro drivers in the GT3 class are coming past ARMS, gaining position, track position. But otherwise, everyone's now starting to settle into a rhythm, and I suspect we will see some more overtakes in short order. But the question now is for our drivers, are they going to focus more on strategy or gaining track position and sacrificing a bit of car preservation for that? Now, what we mean by that is, and particularly we've seen it time and time again, as we see they're getting very wrong coming out. That's Stuart Taylor, who's had a little bit of a snap moment there coming out to turn 6 into a bit of snap oversteer there, just unsettling the rhythm on that Porsche 911. Our point here being, as we see, he's under a lot of pressure from behind of Alexander Patak. We'll come back to our strategic point in a minute. Oh my goodness Lord! And there, I think it's the case that Stuart Taylor just being turned under his own momentum on what happened. This was only moments ago, and as he made his way into the corner, was there contact from Alexander Patak? It's very hard to see. There was a tap there coming down to turn 9. I think Stuart Taylor had lost a lot of momentum, and Patak was coming in very hot behind him, and it's a brief tap, and Stuart Taylor will not be happy with that. Indeed, TGC Racing, I think, will be on the phone to the stewards after that one, saying we got tapped on the rear, and we're not too pleased, because right now he's dropped all the way down to P9 from what was P4 at the time, and well, now he's building himself back up to speed in short order. But we look from him all the way up to what is Stefan Gamble Rasmussen, and not the Hillary Esport drivers involved in that contact, but up there looking to gain some places. And right now we can see it is the case that the Dane chasing after Cranley Swash for P6 in class, as now the LMPs are coming through, and this is where it gets very dicey for everyone, because you've got to have a patient head on you in terms of knowing when to come on through if you're an LMP driver, and the GT3's got to be patient in terms of when the LMPs come up the inside. But we can see here it's the case of Callum Regarton battling with Matt Caruana. Well, if I was to say to you Regarton and Caruana, you'd all be getting flashbacks to Daytona, because it was the case these two were really the star of the show for a huge amount of time in the GT3 Pro class. No, it's not Canal Giovinazzi, and also what was for a good amount of time Tom Edmonds as well. But when those two dropped away, it was Regarton and also what was their Caruana battling to the very end. And as they make their way across that timeline, they're battling for P3 right now, and the question will be, do they set aside their differences for now and go hunting after Gardner and McConey who are coming together, or do they start the fight early? And I think both of these two have a lot of respect. They're great friends off circuit, rivals on circuit, and as we see here, it is the case that Gardner's going to be looking for the move versus McConey, and the Ferrari here is Gardner, and as he makes about the hill, the Verano Motorsport driver, who's been showing great pace as the season's gone on, McConey's going to hook him to the outside, and as he holds the position, he pretty much squeezes Gardner off the road there, And I think Gardner will be wary of that one. I think he'll be saying, okay, pal, you've given me a little bit too much of a squeeze there. And as they make their way down towards turn number 3, it's going to be side by side in the run. They do have coming up behind, and that's Robert de Ceunik, your LMP class leader. Gardner's going to try and go around the outside. And meanwhile, de Ceunik's going to just go up the inside as the two of them battle for the space. But McConey getting his elbows out nice and early and saying, well, Gardner, I'm going to give you the bare minimum room you're entitled to. But Gardner's kept it in there, outside to inside. And McConey in return here, well, where he's finding that grip, I do not know. But the DRS Esports LMS2 driver in the Audi going around the outside and holding on to the lead through turn number 5 into 6. Now, that is something you do not see successfully executed every day. But McConey showing his class as he makes his way up into turn 8, and he's got a couple more of the LMPs going through right now. And that just going through, that's Gaz Williams P2 in the LMP class, and coming up behind is Jamie Dory in short order, and also got there, that's Adam Delmont as they all roll on through and go down on towards another lap. Now this is the horrible part, of course, because you can see Chris Daines here looking for the move on Delmont as they come up into 1. He's going to look up the inside. Daines is going to be very brave to do this, and when it's the case, he is given the space by Delmont, to be fair, but the two of them had to really go for it, and Chris Daines, well, I think he's really starting to ease his way into this one, even with the injury that he's running at the moment. And for context, ladies and gentlemen, if you are wondering, he is driving with a recovering foot. He did break his foot at Daytona, and he drove on with it regardless. And I think the adrenaline may be kicking a little bit right now. He might be having to swap the feet around when he does braking onto accelerator. But as he makes his way down towards turn number 3, it is the case that right now Chris Daines really trying to stay in there, and well, can he make it 2 wins out of 2 despite the injury? That would be an impressive feat. As meanwhile, Gavin Gardner here trying to go around the outside as we see Matt Caruana up the inside of Callum Regarton, and he's going to make it 2 here. It's Caruana as he looks at the move on Gardner, who got pushed to the outside again by McConey, and now Gardner's not going to let this go. He's going to make Caruana have to go around the outside, but that Audi is finding so much grip around the outside at turn number 5. It's almost as if that corner was made for the Audi, and Gardner has just been mugged to place simply for trying to go for the move around the outside of McConey. And now will Callum Regarton capitalise here? Verano Motorsport going to be kicking themselves furious here with the fact they have been robbed to places as they make their way into turn number 8. But to be fair, Altitude Esports, this Callum Regarton isn't going to complain at this as they roll on through to turn number 9. He'll be thinking about this and what he can do next as they make their way onto another lap very shortly. And as they come trying across the line, you can see Gardner immediately going defensive here into 1. But to be fair, Callum Regarton's got enough momentum to come through. I think Gardner's actually going to back off, lift off, just do a little lift and goes into the corner and stay with them. And behind that is Tom Edmonds catching up. So we have got our top 5 in the GT3 Pro class already in the field of their own, separated by 2.5 seconds from nose to tail. But meanwhile, Maurizio McConey here has got the pressure building, and Matt Caruana behind. Now, how will Matt Caruana go for this? He's not at the moment, and I think he will have been studying what happened between Gardner and McConey with regards to that battle on the fact that Gardner was made to go wide at turn 3. And to be fair, Caruana is one of those drivers where, despite his age, he's a very young driver compared to other drivers racing. To be fair, at the same time, he is a very wise driver in the fact, and that is why, of course, he's been rising up through the ranks of iRacing. It's one of those situations whereby he studies the way others drive, he watches how they battle with other drivers, and he takes that information, processes it very quickly, and then understands, okay, this is the way I need to approach the driver. So what will he do with McConey? Well, what he'll probably do is recognise that if McConey has taken the slope out of the corner, he will immediately take to the inside and make Caruana go around the outside. So what Caruana will be focusing on is trying to essentially get McConey to go overly deep into a corner and therefore outbrake himself and get the cut back. That can work against the driver who's defensive in that manner. McConey's gone defensive into 8. Now Caruana is going to try and hold the outside here, but he's going to not be given the room to do so. He has to back off in the end. I think sensible that you don't really go too wide through 8 unless you take a huge amount of speed out of one another. You can see the run he's got out of 9, and look at this run. He's cut back out of 9, and it's giving him a huge amount of momentum as he goes onto another lap up to turn 1. Inside on the brakes here, McConey's going to try and outbrake him, but Caruana's going to have the steam. But now the problem is, of course, he's going to have less momentum than the drivers behind him as we ride on board the gearbox here of what is Matt Caruana as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. And it's going to be the case that McConey's going to look to the inside here as they head up into the braking zone. McConey on the inside, Caruana on the outside. He's going to be battle on the brakes, and you can see Caruana decides not to go for the cutback. I think he was worried about the fact that Callum Regarton may have taken a move into the space there that was left on the apex, and they stay as they were. And now, in terms of McConey coming back on through, but as they make their way down towards 3, Caruana's got the momentum here down into the corner. He brakes nice and late, but he cooks it a little bit better. He gets the car stopped in time, and as a result, McConey has to back out then. Caruana parking it off apex, but McConey turned in too early to capitalise on Caruana going a little bit deep, and he's taken the lead. Now, can he hold on to it? That will be the question. Well, whilst that's been going on, I can tell you that Chris Daines has found his way up into P2 in what is the LMP2 class. And, well, how did he make this happen? Let's take a brief look back. Has rolled up a second. Robert de Ceunik is all the way down in P6. Well, this is Robert de Ceunik, who only moments ago was going very well, and he's lost the rear of the car there at turn number 3, and that would explain what's happened to Robert de Ceunik, who parks up, and there's Gaz Williams. Chris Daines coming on through, and he's had to let pretty much the majority of the LMP2 Pro pack come on through, and he will be absolutely furious with that mistake there. And that is his own doing by the looks of things. And as a result, he's now 17 minutes into this race, he's thinking, I've got the pace to get back there, but now I've made my work a lot harder to do, as he heads down towards turn number 3. As he makes his way on down towards turn number 3, where he got it wrong last time around. We do look to our GT3 AM class, but there has been a bit of a chop and change in the order. Now, if you can see Matthew Addy there alongside his teammate Matt Emmons, I should point out that Matthew Addy is a lap down on the GT3 AM class here, so he's not racing at the moment. He'd like to unlap himself and get onto the lead lap, but it's not looking good. And right now, Darren Doherty, the privateer from Ireland, is currently leading the GT3 AM class. He does have the AM pack behind him. You can see there's Matt Emmons, followed by Cranley Swash at P3, then Nigel Stott P4, followed by Gamble Resboost at P5, and Alexander Patak P6. The top 6, they're separated by 3 seconds, and as they all make their way down, it's against the Red Bull Ring, is providing some fantastic action across our classes, because we're not even a third of the way into the race, we're almost a third of the way in, almost 20 minutes in, and already the battles are only intensifying as time goes on. Now, what we were talking about earlier with regards to strategy is the fact that, do keep in mind, there is a mandatory pit stop in this race. While drivers have to pit, they have to put fuel in the car. They are under fuel intentionally at the start of this race. They do not have full fuel tanks when they start the race, and that is to make sure they have to take on fuel in the pit, hence the mandatory stop. However, whether they change tyres or not is up to them. We're expecting our drivers not to change tyres. Normally in these 60-minute races, we do not see a tyre change. But the conundrum here will be for our drivers, particularly with regards to, and we're already seeing it from Nigel Stott, he's into the pits on what was at the time P4. He's come in very early as Nigel Stott. The conundrum is, if you push hard early on in the race, do you take a lot of life out of the tyres and therefore cost yourself that potential tyre life or that potential lap time advantage later on in the race? On top of that, the more you push, the more fuel you typically use. Now, do you want to fuel save, particularly before your pit stop, in order to have less time in the pits, putting the fuel in the car to take you to the end? The GT3s, that is a question. However, it's not going to be as big a question perhaps as our LMP2 class. The simple reason we normally see our LMP2s are critical on fuel come their second stint. They're literally on the border of having to make a second pit stop to take on additional fuel. And here at the Red Bull Ring, you spend a huge amount of time flat out on the throttle at this circuit, accelerating up through the gears, and that does drain a lot of fuel out of the car. So that is something all our drivers will be wary of, is the fact that if they can do bits of fuel saving here and there, it could really work out for them in the long run, but wait and see how that works out in practice. And that's Patak here, the focus of our cameraman here at Esports, Alexander Patak from Denmark. As he makes his way through turn 5 and up into 6, chasing after his teammate Stefan Gamble Rasmussen. It has calmed down a little bit in the GT3 AM class now that our top 6 are separated in this fashion. In fact, our top 5 with Nigel Stott pitting, and he's come out in P9. He's actually given himself a nice amount of space to Stuart Taylor, who's in P8, a 21-second gap between the two of them. But we look from the battle here in our top 5 to what is our P4 driver in the LMP2 Pro class. We ride on board here with Adam Delmont from iRacing as he chases after Jamie Dory, and as he continues that pursuit, looking onto the back of Jamie Dory going into turn number 8. I do wonder whether Adam Delmont's now thinking more about the fuel game and in terms of saving some fuel behind Dory and letting him pull him along on the straights in the draft. As you can see, they both sweep their way past Stuart Taylor, P8 in the GT3 AM class after that spin early on in the race, but as they make their way up towards the braking zone here, no real sign of an adventure right now, although I say that Delmont get very close under brake into the back of Dory, but as they now make their way down the straightaway up towards turn number 2, you can see that gap really staying stationary. He is gaining a little bit, is Delmont, but not as much as perhaps he would like. He's going to look at the inside, but he's a bit too far back to go for it without making a lunge, although Dory locks up under brake in there. The brakes locking up on the front axle as they make their way out to turn number 2 and down towards 3. This is going to be Delmont's opportunity if he wanted one. He's going to have to press the issue, however, he's on the inside. Dory's going to try and hang it around the outside. They do have Joe McManus ahead of them there. Oh, goodness me, and well, Jamie Dory had to lock the brakes up again, I think worried about tapping the back of McManus, who to be fair, I think was minding his own business and expecting the LMP2 drivers were not going to break that deep into the corner and give him a potential tap on the rear end, but Adam Delmont gets the move done in the end. He's now up into P3 in class as he makes his way on around. Meanwhile, looking to the front, the battle for the lead of the class, Chris Daines is now right on the heels of Gaz Williams. As they make their way down into what is turn number 8, I can also tell you that Tom Edmonds and Matt Caruana have found their way past Cameron Garson, but they keep changing places. We're going to take a look at that, where it's the case, it's the slipstream race up towards turn number 2, and Callum Garson here holding on to the lead of the GT3 Pro class as they make their way up into the braking zone here for turn 2. There's also just been a major incident, I think, involving Robert de Ceunik and also Joe McManus. We'll find out about that very shortly, but right now the battle for the GT3 Pro lead could not be closer, and Callum Garson being made to work in terms of trying to hold on to that lead. As meanwhile, going for the lead of the LMP2 class, that's Gaz Williams, battling with Chris Daines here. Daines had the outside of inside run, and as they make their way down towards turn number 3, right now you can see it's Williams who's holding on to that lead, and they've come up behind the GT3 traffic, the GT3 AMs in particular, and this is a horrible place to be for Gaz Williams because he's got to navigate or negotiate the traffic, we should say, whilst also keeping one eye behind him, what Chris Daines may dare to dream to do. As they make their way through, and you can see in front of them, that is Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen going up the inside of Sean Cranley Swash for what is a P3 in the class as they roll on through and down in towards turn number 6. Now they settle their differences very early, but Chris Daines and Gaz Williams coming through there. No attempt from Daines at potential move. He can't go for it there, given the fact that he is having to be squeezed onto a single line. But now as they make their way up into turn 8, you see they come past Matt Evans, P2 in the AM class in the GT3s, and they'll be coming up behind Darren Dottie very shortly. But this is very difficult to negotiate here as they make their way through, and you can see Williams has to back out there, and this is where Chris Daines will have his chance as Gaz Williams has to pull very hard to the inside, but Daines has got himself down there, and as they make the way down towards turn number 1, they've got a bit of traffic in the form of Ustus. They come into turn number 1, Daines is up the inside. Has he broken a bit too late? No, he just about gets the car settled, but now the Verano Motorsport driver will have to try and hold off Gaz Williams, but Williams has got the run. He's already there on the inside as they make the way up towards turn number 2, side by side as they head up into the braking zone. Daines on the outside, Williams on the inside, into the braking zone they go, and Williams was never ever going to let Daines have that cutback. You could see it, he pinned the car literally to the side of Daines and said, if you want it, you're going to have to try something different because I know that's coming, and Williams is back into the lead of the class. But these two are stripping time out of one another as Daines looks to the inside into 3. Rear of them, that's Adam Delmont close. He's 1.5 seconds back, and this battle continues as Dan Skinner and Jamie Dory into the pits from what is P6 and P7 in class as they make the way round and down in towards turn number 5. Does Daines trying to go around the outside of Williams here, battling all the way through, using the downforce of the LMP2 machine, and Daines takes the position. Williams there, I think, backing off just a little bit into the apex of turn number 6. I think he's worried about the fact that Delmont is getting closer. He doesn't want this to be a three-way fight. But watch their way down in towards turn number 8 now, and as they make their way on down, it is the case. They're coming up against more traffic here, and as they roll on through, Hodges, well, he's going to be, oh, goodness me, and that is Callum Garton with a spin on the exit of 9. What on earth has happened? This is a GT3 Pro leader only moments ago. Oh, the car started to unsettle there through 8. As he came down to 9, I think it's going to be a continuation, and the rear has just stepped completely loose. And, well, Callum Garton from Altitude Esports there, I think, right on the limit. And in the end, he found the limit and then some, as now he brings himself back up to speed. He's now in what is, if we do double check our notes very quickly here, I believe that Callum Garton has dropped to P5 in class. And, well, Chris Daines, whilst he's got past what is past Gaz Williams there, I think it's the case that now Matt Caruana, the leader in the GT3 Pro class, you can see him here staying to the outside as Gaz Williams looks to the return on Chris Daines. Matt Caruana thinking now about how to hold off Tom Edmonds. He's shaken off one of the Austrian esports drivers, but now he's got another one. It's like a hydra in a way. You cut off one head, 2 appear in its place. In this case, you cut off one, it's the case another one appears in its place as they make the way down towards turn number 5. As they roll on through here, it's been the case that Caruana and Edmonds, of course, we've seen these two drivers have great rivalry since the start of the season, and, well, can Edmonds pull a surprise here? We do know Edmonds is a very strategic driver. He hasn't necessarily always got the pace compared to his peers, but what he does have is a very smart head on him. And as the Altitude Esports driver rolls on down into turn number 8, he loves that Porsche 911 as well. As he comes on through, he'll be looking to build the car and build that momentum as we go deeper and deeper into the race. Remember, we're not even at the halfway point yet, and the battling has been absolutely ferocious. And speaking of more battling, Chris Daines, we was under pressure for that from Gaz Williams only moments ago, but it's the case that Williams has backed off this time. But meanwhile, I think we've just lost somebody in the rear of the picture. They're coming out of the final corner, where Sean Cranley Swashy comes into the pits. I think he's had a bit of a moment. this was only moments ago. We take a look back, and the Caruana Motorsport driver here on his debut with that podium in race number 1 coming into turn number 8. Oh, goodness me. Now, what was 8th there? I believe that's Stefan Gamble Rasmussen going a bit slow. I wonder if Gamble Rasmussen was trying to come into the pits, and Granny Swash has just got it a little bit wrong and tapped the back. He's come in as a result. But I think there's a little bit of miscommunication between the two drivers there, as he's been serviced right now and he's taking his scheduled stop. Now, where is Nigel Stock in all of this, I hear you ask? Here is Nigel Stock, who came in from P4 very early. He pitted at around 20 minutes. He's going to take the place of a Cranley Swash, no doubt about that. And I think Nigel Stock right now, somebody to be very worried about if you're in the GT3 and battle for the lead, because having taken that early pit stop, he's given himself a huge amount of clear space out on track, and he's been putting in very solid laps. In terms of his lap time, that last lap from Nigel Stock at 30.3 versus Darren Doherty, the leader, at 30.2. He's matching the leader's pace, but remember, he's not having to worry as much about being a piece of traffic to be navigated past by the LMP, because he's the sole driver here, and he's not coming up behind any other GT3. So right now, I think Stock is in the driving seat, if you excuse the pun, with regards to potentially stealing away a podium, if not the win of the GT3 AM class. It's going to be close, we'll have to keep our eyes on it. But speaking of keeping our eyes on things, Gaz Williams and Adam Delman both into the bits from P2, P3 and the LMP2 class, respectively. Chris Daines, however, has stayed out. As we do take a quick sip of water there, if you don't mind my excuses there, it is the case that Chris Daines up the inside of what is Cranley Swash, and if you're going past his teammate, then you'd probably be given a little bit of a wave, and perhaps on the team radio saying, keep it up, you're doing okay. And as Daines makes his way on through, how will this strategy play out? Given that Gaz Williams has triggered the undercut, will we see a response from Daines immediately on this lap? Because we have seen how the two of them have been very equal on pace, and as Daines rolls on through, we'll have to wait and find out. As I look out my commentary box window, we've got Adam Delmont in the pits. We've also got Stefan Gamble Rasmussen exiting the pits. In fact, we need to take a look at Gamble Rasmussen. He's in P3 in the AM class right now in the GT3 AMs. There's Nigel Stock. I think Gamble Rasmussen, it's going to be very close between these two. Nigel Stock comes on through the opening corner, and there's Gamble Rasmussen emerging. Can Nigel Stock get the jump here? He's going to have the momentum. I think he's a bit too far back as we ride on board here with Nigel Stock. If he's going to do it, he needs to do it now, because otherwise, once Gamble Rasmussen up to speed, this will curb his momentum. He goes to the outside here. Gamble Rasmussen's going to do everything he can to outbrake Nigel Stock. Remember, on slightly cold tyres and colder brakes. He hasn't had the tyres changed, but they do lose temperature whilst he's stationary in the pits. You can see it is the case that Nigel Stock gets the cut back here, and the Mercedes driver will use the grunt of the Mercedes V8 versus the 5.2 litre V10 in the back of that Audi. And as they make the way down into turn 3, has he done enough to commit to the inside? He's there. He's got his nose in. Will he be able to make it work? He comes out of 3 into 4. You can see Gamble Rasmussen there trying to hold the inside line up into 5. He does go for it, does Gamble Rasmussen. He makes Stock have to go a little bit wide under braking, but Stock in the end gets the move done, and that's a critical pass to the Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks driver, because that means he can now go hunting after Matt Emmons. And where is Emmons, I hear you ask? He's in the pit lane right now being serviced. Darren Doherty has stayed out. As we see, it is pit time for a lot of our GT3s. Matt Emmons still being stationary at the moment, being serviced there. What about Nigel Stock? Well, he makes his way down out of turn number 8, heads down towards 9. Matt Emmons has just left his pit box. This is going to be very close, but I think that battle may have just contributed a little bit in terms of whether Stock's going to come out ahead. Emmons emerging from the pit lane. He's got a little bit of traffic in the form of Callum Regarton. I don't think that's going to cost him too much. He gets up to speed, and here is Nigel Stock, and it's just a little bit further back this time. That battle with Gamble Rasmussen has cost Stock, I think it's cost him about half a second, and in the end it is that half a second which has put him out of arm's reach and Matt Emmons for the time being. But to be fair, Nigel Stock has got a lot of momentum on his side and a lot of pace. You can imagine he will be trying to come at Emmons very shortly. Now in return, of course, with Darren Doherty yet to pit, the question will be for our lead in the GT3 AM class is whether he can make that lead stick in terms of going for the overcut. So he will be going the deepest of our lead drivers in the GT3 AM class, as meanwhile into the pit comes Matthew Hodges and also Matt Caruana from the GT3 Pros. Gavin Gardner is out on circuit. He pitted a bit earlier. Gavin Gardner, he's making his way around through turn number 7 up towards 8 right now. Callum Regarton has also pitted, and Tom Edmonds has dropped a long way back. In fact, Tom Edmonds Edmonds has had a very long stop by comparison. He's put new tyres on the cars, Tom Edmonds. He's had a pit stop that's over a minute long, whereas all of our other drivers are having pit stops around 30 seconds in length. And does Edmonds know something that we don't know about in terms of the tyres and how they're going to degrade as they make the way towards the end of this race? We'll have to wait and see as Matt Caruana emerges your leader once again in the GT3 Pro class, and Gavin Gardner comes around and retakes P2, but he's now approximately 4.5 seconds off of Matt Caruana. You see Matthew Hodges there has actually closed the gap quite nicely to Gardner after the pit stops, and as he makes his way up the straight now towards turn number 2, he'll be thinking about what can he do next in the story. As they make the way on around, I can tell you that it is the case that in the LMP2 class, and this is where things are getting very interesting in terms of strategy, Gaz Williams leads. He's had his pit stop. All of our LMP2 drivers have made their mandatory scheduled stop. Gaz Williams is leading at the moment as he makes his way down into turn number 1. As he rolls on through here, it is the case that by comparison in terms of pit times, well, Williams only had a 30-second pit stop, only put fuel in the car. Jamie Dory, similar situation now, P2. Robert de Ceunik in P3. After that spin, it is the case that Robert de Ceunik is now trying to build that momentum and hunt down Jamie Dory. And then it is Dan Skinner in P4 here, as we see he used to get caught up behind a little bit of GT3 traffic and trying to find his way after Robert de Ceunik. But the big one, the big hitter here, Chris Daines, he was leading, he's pitted, he had a pit stop in the end, which was 1 minute and 6 seconds, so over double the length of his rivals ahead of him. Daines, I think, has taken on tyres in the pits, and if that's the case, does Daines know something about tyre degradation? Much like what we said with regards to Tom Edmonds in the GT3 Pro class, because Daines and Delmont have both had extended pit stops, and we presume that's to put tyres on the car. So there wasn't any damage on Daines' car as far as we could see, and now he's got to go hunting it, because these lap times come on in. Now it's a 19.8 last time around. If these lap times come on in with those fresher tyres towards the end of the race, Daines could be a very dangerous man in hunting after the win. I think that's what Daines might be doing right now. I think he's going for the full investment, which is he has not got the ability to manage the car and the brakes and protect the tyres because of his situation regarding his foot, of course. So as a result, he's decided, right, I've got to go all in and just see what the gamble pays me with. And I think that may be what Tom Edmonds has gone for as well, as he passes Matthew Addy here, who is a lap down, of course. And Edmonds, as he makes his way up into turn number 1, it is the case that the Austrian esports driver here, I think, has thrown in what is the option or the gamble, and as we see Matthew Addy, they're getting a little bit wrong at turn 1, and well, the Sam Cases UK NXTGEN Racing driver is not having a happy day here at what is the Red Bull ring, but he'll come back strong next time around, there's no doubt about that. As we look from Tom Edmonds, we look to a bit further down in the GT3 category, intending to Hilliard Esports, Morten S. Oosthuis here as he chases after Joe McManus. Now, as they make their way on to another lap here, of course, Joe McManus involved in an incident much earlier on with, we do believe there was an incident involving him and potentially Robert de Ceunik. This was before the pit stops occurred. We will try and get you a reference as to what happened between the two of them, and here we go. Now we can see here, this is Joe McManus making his way into turn number 8. Now, does he get it wrong in the corner? No, actually, he's okay there. And then Robert de Ceunik just tapped the rear of him, and I think caught out by how early the TGC bottom split Heroes driver broke into the corner. Well, I think McManus is going to be safe there from the steward saying to me, did anything wrong? I think it's the case that Robert de Ceunik will be kicking himself for just misanticipating the braking point there. It does happen, of course, in multi-class. It is the case those Dallara P217 machines can brake a bit late into a lot of these corners because they've got those very strong brakes, also that downforce to go with it, whereas these GT3s, not as aerodynamically refined. They do have carbon ceramic brake discs, of course, but it is one of those situations where I think McManus there will not be too happy that he was turned before the pit stops, and that's hurt his race quite considerably. But wait to see how he brings it on back later on. But right now, with everything playing out as it is, and with all the mandatory pit stops complete, all the scheduled ones, we do look to Dan Skinner here, who is chasing after Robert de Ceunik, and the iRacing driver. He started on pole, of course, for the purposes of the reverse grid for this feature race, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 2, looking good so far, as we're hearing that Jordan Pope and Joe McManus have both jumped to the pits. They've both had moments, and it's gone a bit wrong for them. Edoardo Francischin as well has just got it wrong, and well, what has happened to Edoardo Francischin? You can see the DRS Esports and NOS1 driver here coming down into turn number 6, and see Roland through. Is the rear going to step out? It does indeed. It steps out very nasty there, and Ed Lack, to be fair, with great reactions, just cutting his way to the outside there. He had the space to do so, so he decided to avoid any potential contact. And speaking of Ed Lack, of course, having started at the back of the field. He started from the pit lane in the end, deciding to stay clear of what was the potential carnage on lap number 1. The CXR Project Black driver is making his way on around, and to be fair to him, he is now P7 overall as well as in class, and he is 16.5 seconds off the back of Adam Delmont here, trying to hunt down a P6 finish as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. He's still got a lot of time to go, to be fair. Now this race, of course, moving into that quiet stage in terms where everybody's building their way up to momentum. We're seeing how those strategies are playing out. So it's the calm before the storm right at the end of this race, and we'll wait to see what that storm is going to look like when it's all said and done. As we are hearing retirements for both of the TGC Bottom Split Heroes drivers of Joe McManus and Jordan Pope. They are both retired from the race, and that is very unfortunate after what was a great performance by the pair of them in the sprint race here today. Both of them picking up, what was, if I remember correctly, a P6, P7, and that would have been some great points for the team. But something's gone very wrong, and they've had to box both of the cars. But with those cars being boxed, of course, it does mean that some drivers get promoted. Matthew Addy in particular has been promoted up to P9 as a result of it in the GT3 AM class. And I think he's going to try and soldier on to the very end of this race to take every little point you can get, for the simple reason those points may be invaluable when you get to the season end, because you never know what can happen, even at your favourite circuit, potentially later on in the season. Just one mistake and it can throw everything up into the air with regards to what points you can get. So therefore he's going to try and take every point as he runs wide there. Oh, goodness me. And it was the case. McConey almost trying to mirror or match what Matthew Addy was doing. They're just taking a little bit too much run out of turn number 3, a bit of understeered wide, and in the end the car said no, and he's just missed the wall. But McConey as well making a very similar mistake, almost trying to follow in the footsteps of Addy, and the DRS Esports LMS2 driver here now just needs to try and keep it on the track for a bit of time and settle himself down to go hunting after Tom Edmonds. Now speaking of Tom Edmonds, of course, we saw that he decided to go for that tyre change in the pits, or we believe he changed tyres in the pits, and the Austrian Esports driver, what are his lap times, I hear you ask? Well, it is the case that right now his last lap of 29.4 versus what was a 29.1 for Matt Caruana and a 29.8 for Gavin Gardner. So this tyre change, if he has changed tyres, has not quite worked out perhaps as spectacularly as we would expect, but he is running on the pacer leaders right now, so this may give him an opportunity to cut his way up the order later in the race, where his tyres will stay in their prime for much longer compared to the leaders who are on the same set of tyres that they started the race on. So Edmonds has still got to grow into this race, but he needs to grow into it in the next 10 minutes, because otherwise this may have been a gamble that was not worth it in the end. And it will have cost him a potential top 5 finish as he makes his way down. And where is his target for top 5? That's Edoardo Francescin, as we see the DRS Esports LMS1 driver just up the road by what is there 4.5 seconds, making his way through turn number 4 and up into turn number 5. Now as he rolls on through here, Francescin doing everything right so far, despite a couple of mistakes earlier in the race. We see behind him there, that's Dan Skinner coming on through. We look from them to our race leader, and that is Gaz Williams, our overall leader, I should say, an LMP PRO class leader, and he makes his way there past Callum Regarton, the P4 driver in the GT3 Pro class, as we see Gaz Williams making his way up towards turn number 1, and well, right now, looking very solid. But to be fair, it is the case that whilst his last lap of 20.8 was a fast lap, indeed the second fastest, the fastest man in the LMP2 Pro class, you probably guessed it, Chris Daines, who with that tyre change right now is flying. There is no doubt about that. He may be 12.5 seconds down on Dan Skinner, but he is outpacing Dan Skinner on that lap as he crosses the timeline. That was a 19.8. That was 2 seconds faster than Dan Skinner on that lap. And with just over 20 minutes to go and a lap time here of approximately 1 minute 20 each time around, we are expecting, if I do a bit of quick mental math, and forgive me if this is not entirely accurate, but we are looking at least 15 more laps for our drivers here at the Red Bull Ring. And with that in mind, if we do it on the average of about 1.5 seconds gained per lap for Daines, 1.5 times 15, well, that will take you up to 22.5 seconds. It will be the case that Chris Daines, if we take 22 seconds off his time, he'll be battling for the podium come the end of this one. He'll be right up there trying to hunt after de Ceunik when all is said and done, if not Jamie Dory potentially. So right now I think Daines, this investment may pay off, albeit he's got to keep these lap times up and hope that the lap times of his peers ahead of him start to drop off a bit more, because de Ceunik's still holding on to 20s, as is Gaz Williams, whereas Jamie Dory and Dan Skinner are both in the 21s, but Daines has got a bit of traffic here, and it's these moments where he catches traffic. If he catches it at the worst possible time, they will really hamper his progress, and that is what he's gambled on. Having the fresh tyres, can he deploy the pace every single lap? If he can't get it on the majority, at least 75% of the laps, he will not gain enough to be up there in the top 3 when all is said and done and we wave the checkered flag. But we will wait and see. He's got a long way to go in this race. points. Meanwhile, a driver who is hunting down another position on the podium here, Matthew Hodges, who we ride on board with the Ferrari driver as he chases after Gavin Gardner here for a potential P2. Now, as he makes his way under braking into turn number 3, it is the case that these two have been trading lap time somewhat. Both of them running the 29.6 from Gardner last time round versus Hodges in the 29.4. Both of them, of course, in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, the specially designed Ferrari machine, which replaced the Ferrari 488 base model. And it is the case they did not just simply change the aerodynamics on the car, Ferrari actually rebuilt the entire machine from scratch. Little known fact compared to, say, the Mercedes GT3 versus the Mercedes GT3 Evo that you see in the Fanatec GT World Challenge. But as they make their way up towards turn number 8, it is the case that these two drivers exchange in lap time, albeit Hodges there taking a bit of a different approach to turn 8. In fact, turning very early, and he's had to give space to watch Jamie Dory coming on through there. And I think the reason why he pulled the car in very early to turn 8 was to send a message to Dory, which is, look, let me run wide at turn 8 as we come out the corner. I'll give you the space to come on through. He didn't want there watch Dory to sipe his way out the inside into turn 8, so it would have cost him more time, he would argue. And as they make their way through one, you can definitely see that Hodges looks the more composed of the two drivers in terms of the run through the opening corner and heading up towards turn number 2 here. And I think Hodges is starting to enact that pressure on his rival for second place in the GT3 Pro class. As we continue to wait as they make the way on up into the braking zone here for turn number 2. You can see under braking he's just taking those little bits of time, plus he'll have the draft of the Ferrari in front of him, which will help him out when he heads up into 5th gear in particular. The Ferrari a little bit of a slouch when it's by itself with regards to its 5th and 6th gear, but once it's got a tow, that really helps the car. And well, you can see here how Hodges just staying with Gardner for the time being, but he does have to let de Ceunik come on through there. De Ceunik 7 seconds back on Jamie Dory, and now looking for the wave around Gardner. You can see Gardner there having to think about which way he's going to go, and in the end de Ceunik deciding, you know what, I'll just make your mind up, or make your mind up for you, and cut to the outside to go round onto the inside into turn number 5. And of course, sometimes in the LMP2s, you do have to make those snap decisions and decide where you're going to put the car, and just let the GT3 driver do what he's got to do instead, or he or she, I should say, as they make their way on around. As they come through the corners, we do look back here to what is Darren Doherty, and well, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a little bit of a dramatic moment earlier on, and Matt Emmons has dropped a long way down. He did come back out in P2. Darren Doherty, who was our leader when the pit stops happened in the GT3 AM class, he decided to stay out and go for the overcut, and he's made it work. And behind him, that is Nigel Stock, who has found a way past Matt Emmons, and Emmons is down in P5, so I think Emmons has had a mistake somewhere or a run off circuit. We haven't seen it on the radar, but Emmons has had something go very wrong. He's only made 1 pit stop, so he's definitely not coming to the pits a second time. I can definitely confirm that. We're just trying to find out what exactly has happened, as Cameron Garton sets the fastest lap in the GT3 Pro class of what is, we can see out there, a 29.008. But as they make the way on around right now, Nigel Stock is flying here, and he's trying to hunt down that win in the GT3 AM class and make it 2 out of 2, which if so, that would be absolutely sensational as he makes his way on up the hill. Now, as he comes on through, in fact, I've just had some confirmation in my ear. I think actually for Matt Evans, it may have been the case that he picked up what was a drive-through penalty. So I'm not hearing any off-circuits from Matt Evans, but he has come into the pit lane twice. So I think it may be the case that he did pick up a drive-through penalty due to track limits, and track limits are very punishing here. And at the same time, the Red Bull rings, there's so much runoff area, you think you can abuse it, but it is the case you can't abuse it, otherwise you're going to be getting a waggle from the automated stewards, a finger wagging that is. And as they make their way on around them now, it is the case that Stock really does have that battle for the lead all to himself, with Gamborg Rasmussen the best part of what is 6.6 seconds behind. He is gradually trying to close up, but to be fair, he's matching the lap times to Doherty, but he is still 2/10 off the pace being shown by Nigel Stock. As hold up a second, is that Matt Caruana retired from the race? I can see that on the GT3 Pro classification screen that Matt Caruana is being listed as out. Say it's not so. If that is a retirement for Matt Caruana, that is going to throw things massively open. We will be seeing a potential new winner here in the GT3 Pro class, or a return winner in the form of Gavin Gardner, and that's a disaster for Matt Caruana. I think it's a retirement. I'm hearing my ear right now. I think it's the case the Audi ARA has had engine issues and they've had to bring it into the pit. That is a disaster for Caruana, and in return now, can Gardner make it his second win in the series, or will Matthew Hodges, who has tried time and time again to pick up a win in Next Gen Races series involving GT3s, can he finally find a way to get a win at what will be for him If we do the math, over 20 times of asking, the CXR Project Black driver has been denied a number of times, but could this be the day with 15 minutes to go? We will wait and see. But right now, Matt Caruana and also Maurizio Marconi are both retired in the GT3 Pro class, and that is a disastrous moment for both drivers there, as they will not be classified in terms of the points as I understand, because they would have not made it sufficient distance, which is 1 lap behind the lead lap when it ends, to be classified in the point standings. It does, of course, open it up. The prospect here, CXR Project Black right now, will be cheering on Matthew Hodges as much as possible and saying to just go for it. The win's there. If you can get close enough to Gardner, take him on. And as they make the way up onto another lap very shortly, 14 minutes to go plus the final lap here. And the gap between these two hanging somewhere between 6 tenths to 8 tenths of a second, depending on the section of the circuit. It does look as though Gardner had a very miserable run out of turn number 9. In fact, Hodges closed down, was 4 tenths of a second there coming out the final corner. And as they make the way up towards turn number 2, you can see Hodges in not really closing the straight line battle up towards turn 2. I wonder if he's doing a little bit of fuel saving here, whether he's actually underfueled the car and has decided he's got to do some fuel saving initially in this stint to come on strong at the end, or whether he's just doing some fuel saving now, and in the final 10 minutes, that's when he'll go on the offensive, given the fact that he is matching Gardner well on pace right now. But as they make the way on through, we can only wonder, and indeed we can only wonder about Chris Daines, who is continuing to put in very strong laps in the LMP2 Pro class. He's still P5. He's got the gap to Skinner down to 7.5 seconds, but he's running out of race time. He's only got 13 minutes by the time he comes out of turn number 8 to potentially close this down. And as he makes his way into turn number 8 at this point, as we're hearing that Matthew Addy has retired from this race, he's brought the car into the pits. The team has said it's time to bring it in. I mean, it's the case they were feeling perhaps the car was not going to make it to the end. Alternatively, it's enough for today in terms of racing out the Red Bull ring, and it has not been favourable to Matthew Addy. Chris Daines right now having to throw everything at this in order to try and get back on that podium, and that was a 19.8 from Chris Daines there. And it is the case, he does hold the fastest lap in class, a 19.3, so the fastest lap we've seen all day from anybody around here, including the qualifying sessions. He's beaten that qualifying pole time, and right now the Dane is flying, but can he do enough? That time around he only took a second out of Dan Skinner, not 2 seconds or 1.5. But meanwhile, Gavin Gardner here does have Matthew Hodges getting closer. We ride on board the gearbox here of the GT3 Pro leader. Not too much time to go. He'll be hoping that clock comes down as soon as possible as they make their way into the braking zone for 2. Now as they come on through here, you can see under brake and just how Hodges takes so much time out of Gardner on exit. That's where Gardner gets a little bit back in return, but Hodges definitely seems to have a command of the braking in that Ferrari into these heavy braking zones. And Gardner, to be fair, could be protecting the car right now, could be driving it nice and safely, but in return, of course, that does mean he leaves himself open to a potential lunge from Wes Hodges. But to be fair, Matthew Hodges, one of the smartest drivers out there in GT3, he's not going to go for a move unless he thinks he can really pull it off. And as they make the way into turn number 5, you can see the pressure is building on Gardner here as they make the way on around down in towards turn number 6. Now, rolling through, looking at their sector times, I can tell you it is the case that Hodges does seem to be stronger of the two of them, sectors 1 and 3. Sector 2, they're practically equal, but it is the case that Hodges really delivering in the opening and the final sector. He just seems to have both of those sectors hooked up, and those are the sectors which are critical for giving you a shot at overtaking when you go on to the rest of the lap or the next lap as they make the way out the final corner. And Gardner once again here leads for the time being, but how long will it be before Hodges looks at move? The gap now down to 2.5 tenths and still closing. Gardner sets a personal best of 29.1. Hodges looks at a potential move. He's very close to the brakes. He has to back out. There was no way that was going to happen without contact, but Hodges definitely getting in the mind of Gardner. As you can see, they're coming through around them. Here's Adam Delman in the LMP2 machine as they make the way up towards turn 2. You can see Gardner tucking in behind Delman. He wants a little bit of toe here for the simple reason he wants to be able to gain a little bit more straight line speed, but already Delman's softened down the road, and that's the case that Gardner's going to do it all under his own impetus once more. Now as they make the way down towards turn number 3, I can tell you in the battle for the AM lead in the GT3 class between Doherty and Stock, it is the case that Doherty is still leading by 5 tenths and Stock. Now finding that wall of dirty air off the back of Doherty's Lamborghini is starting to only gain a tenth of a second a lap and is staying with him, but that may be a factor for the Mercedes, which does naturally have a tendency to understeer, and even more so in dirty air. It's not as refined as some of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines, such as the Huracan, such as the Ferrari, and that could be a conundrum that Stock's now got to try and find his way through and pierce the distance. As we hear the fastest lap in the LMP2 Pro class is now 19.354, as set by Chris Daines, who is continuing to fly. We'll keep an eye on how far he progresses as time goes on, as he is up into that P5 position, but he's still trying to hunt down a Dan Skinner as they make the way on around. But we stay here at the moment with the battle for the GT3 Pro lead. Gavin Gardner, your leader, and not too much time left now, less than 10 minutes. So these guys, approximately 7 more laps to go. Flash of lights there from Gardner. He's flashing who's ahead. The GT3 AM driver saying to him, look, I need to come on through soon. You're going to have to be worried because I'm going to come on through. I've got a lot of pressure behind. Of course, Usos will be minding his own business. He'll have the blue flags waving in terms of knowing that he does have to be aware of the pace of the GT3 Pro drivers coming on through, but he doesn't have to react too sharply. In fact, he just pulls over to the side, then lets them both go. Meanwhile, in that battle for the lead of the GT3 AM class, you can see it here. This is Darren Doherty, your lead of the privateer in the Lamborghini, ahead of Nigel Stock in the Mercedes. As they make the way into turn 1, Doherty goes a little bit defensive onto the inside, and as they roll them through the corner here, it is the case that Nigel Stock gets a much better run, but you can see the flash of lights there. Front way is Gaz Williams, the leader in the LMP class, and as they make the way up the hill now, it's going to be side by side. Doherty's had a very bad run out of 1. Nigel Stock's going to seize the opportunity up the inside into 2. Can the Mercedes driver get it done here? He's up the inside. He understeers a little bit under braking, but as they make the way out now, it's a drag race. It's Mercedes power versus Lamborghini power, or should we say Audi power, because that is an Audi V10 engine in the back of that Lamborghini, although don't tell Lamborghini about that one, as we see the Mercedes V8 here just losing out a little bit in the run down towards turn number 3, and Doherty holds on for now, but Nigel Stock has found a hole in Doherty's armour, and that is turn number 1. He seems to be weak, and he goes a bit deep into 3. Doherty pins Stock to the inside of 4 to make him go on to the outside of 5, and as they roll their way into the left-hander, it's going to be Stock trying to hold around the outside, but to be fair, I think he's going to be dreaming of that one. The Mercedes just does not have the turning potential, and as they make the way down to 6 now, Doherty holds on, and I think Doherty's trying to formulate a defence plan here. But behind them, that is Jamie Dory under increasing pressure from Robert de Ceunik. De Ceunik has come behind Jamie Dory here in the closing stages and is looking for P2 in the LMP2 Pro class. And with 8 minutes to go, it's the case we've got 3 battles kicking off simultaneously here. We can only follow one of them at a time. We'll do our best. But as they roll on through the final corner, it's the case of Jamie Dory here under increasing pressure from de Ceunik, and 7 seconds down Gaz Williams. These two I think will be battling to the end. Whereas they make the way through turn number 1 and head up towards 2. You can see Robert de Ceunik there running wide, and that's going to carry some momentum, but he may get a slowdown for that if he abuses it too much in terms of track limits. But as they roll on up in towards what is turn number 2, de Ceunik's going to look for the move up the inside here. It's going to be critical for P2, and as they make the way through, Dory gives him the space, and in return there's a little bit of contact between the two. I think de Ceunik was hoping that Dory would have backed off completely, but Dory decides, no, I'm going to stay there on the outside, you can't just squeeze me off. And as they make the way side by side down in towards turn number 3, de Ceunik's got to try and again lunge on the brakes here into 3. He gets his nose in, and Dory shows him the space on the inside, and this time de Ceunik gets the move done, or does he? Now as they come through, you can see Jamie Dory tucks in behind, switches to the outside here, trying to get de Ceunik to go deep into the corner, but de Ceunik's having none of it and decides, I'll park it on apex and hold you behind me as they make the way in towards turn 6. De Ceunik moves up to P2 in class and now has a 7.7 second gap to Gaz Williams to close down with 7 minutes remaining. I think he'll be focusing more on holding on to P2 now for the remainder of this race. But meanwhile, in the battle for the GT3 Pro lead, we can see Gavin Gardner still holding off Hodges, and Callum Garton into the pits, and Jamie Dory into the pits as well. I think Jamie Dory's run out of fuel at the very end, unless there's a track limits penalty, and that's a drive-through. We'll have to wait and see Callum Garton in, and well, he's just made his way on through. He has not been serviced in the pit lane at all. So Callum Garton there with track limits. Where is Eduardo Francochin? Well, Francochin's only coming down towards turn number 9 right now, so I think Callum Garton will be nice and safe. But what this does do is it promotes Chris Daines up into P4 as long with Dan Skinner up into P3, and you can see, look at Daines, and there's Dan Skinner just up the road from him. This could be a podium for what is Chris Daines here if Dan Skinner is not able to hold off the fast charging Dane, but the Britain I think will have 1 or 2 tricks up his sleeve. We will wait and see as they make the way up into turn 2 here with less than 6 minutes to go. Here's the case, the battles are inching ever closer, and meanwhile one battle that's actually died off to an extent is the battle for the GT3 AM lead. Darren Doherty has found the better measure of Nigel Stock, and he's opened up a gap of 1.5 seconds here, and it may be the case that Nigel Stock made a brief mistake, only moments to go. I think it was the case that Stock made a mistake under braking into one of the extended braking zones, and it is the case he lost out, but Nigel Stock is now trying to get that momentum back and go for one last ditch attempt at trying to take that position. speaking of taking positions, Matt Evans here chasing after Alexander Patak in the GT3 class for P4. It's the case the Next Gen Racing with Sam Case's UK driver. He didn't come here to win today, he's just hoping to get some points on the board. I think he'll be taking this P5, and if he can make it a P4, he'll be even happier. As I see in my commentary box window, Lee Horn in the pit lane in the GT3 Pro class. I think some drivers may have under fuel while picking up drive-through penalties for their troubles because of track limits. And with 5 minutes to go now, it's all coming to a crescendo as we see Matt Evans goes a little bit wide, coming out 6 into 7, and that's going to cost him a bit of a run there as he builds his momentum back up, coming down in towards what is turn number 8. But he's been given a breather, has Alexander Patak, as they roll them through and head down towards turn number 9. And as they make their way through the corner, meanwhile, as we look from them to Dan Skinner, and look there, that is Chris Daines, who we ride on board with, who gets a really good run through turn number 2, and that is the tyre wear which is on Dan Skinner's tyres, in terms of the fact he's not changed tyres since the start, as Adam Delman has had a moment and comes into the pit in P6 in the class. But this is why Daines invested in the tyres, so he could push right to the end and give it everything, because he's got to manage the car as best he can given his circumstances. But as he rolls on through turn number 4 and up into 5, it is the case that right now Daines looking for that final position on the podium. He won't make it back-to-back wins. He will finally lose out the perfect score, but at the same time it will be the case for Daines, whereby I think he won't mind that much. It will still be another great night for the Danishman from PROTO Motorsport, and as he makes his way out towards turn of 8, he's already set the history books alight by having 4 perfect nights in a row as he rolls on through to turn 8. Now, can he make it a double podium tonight as he comes into the final quarter, where he's getting a really good run here compared to Skinner? You can see Skinner's having to tiptoe on very heavily worn tyres versus the fresh tyres of Daines. They come across the timeline here, both make their way out towards turn 1. Daines is going to pin. What is Skinner there to defend in the middle of the road? That's going to cost Skinner a lot of momentum. Skinner gets a bit of snap oversteer there, and as they make their way out of turn number 1, it's now a drag race, which Daines will be hoping he can win, but Skinner's oversteered himself onto the inside run up towards turn number 2, and as they make their way through the kink and into the braking zone for Remus, it is the case that Daines is going to be made to go for the cutback. Skinner goes deep under braking. Daines will have anticipated that, and I think Daines here with the better tyres gets the better traction, and as they roll on out, Daines up into P3 now. Can Skinner come back? And you can see Daines changes direction and puts himself back in the middle of the road into the braking zone here, and Skinner looks to go around the outside, but I don't think he's got the tyres to do it unless Daines makes a mistake on exit here. I think it's all said and done, and as they exit out 3 and head up towards 5, it does look as though Daines has made his way into P3 onto the podium. It's 10.5 seconds to Robert de Ceunik now. I do not think, barring some miraculous moment, I think Daines will take P3 and try and run away with it to the finish. We will wait and see, but what a brilliant move by Daines. And to be fair, Skinner did everything he could, given the situation with his tyres, to hold him at bay, but it didn't quite work out. Meanwhile, it is the case in the battle to be in the top 4. We can see here Tom Edmonds in the GT3 Pro class trying to find a way past what is Francorchamps, as we have confirmation in the YouTube chat there from Matt Caruana with regards to the disconnection. That's very unfortunate, Max. It was running so well for yourself, but we do look forward to seeing you bounce back next time out, of course, at Hockenheim, because that was absolutely stellar pace you were showing. But right now, Tom Edmonds has found his way past Francorchamps there as they made their way through the run out of turn 3 up into 5, and Edmonds now into that P4 position, and I think he's just got to try and break away with the time remaining. Meanwhile, in the battle for the lead in the class, in the GT3 Pro class, we can see it is the case that Gavin Gardner here, the PROTO Motorsport driver, is holding on for the time being. He's got an 8 tenths of a second advantage. It comes down to 6 tenths as they make their way out of 2 and head up towards turn number 3. And you can see Hodges is there with him, but Hodges just does not have enough in the tank, I think, to put the pressure on. They've only got a couple more laps to go, including this one. Not long left, of course. It's our overall leader, so that is Gaz Williams, our LMP2 class leader, who dictates when the checkered flag comes on out and when the final lap is, given the fact we have only got approximately a minute to go by the time these guys come out to turn number 6. But Gardner right now tiptoeing through turn number 8. You see, went a little bit deep there, and in fact the car started to come loose him on the rear, whereas Hodges had a much narrower line into the corner, and this is where Gardner cannot afford to make any tiny errors now. He's literally only a moment away from taking the win in the GT3 Pro class here to add to his win at Motorsport, but can he hold on for at least one more lap? Hodges is closing. Hodges has been saving it all up for one final push here as the 2 drivers come out of the final corner, and Hodges, where he needed an opportunity, this is the time they make the one to what we believe for them will be their final lap. Hodges all over the back. He looks to the inside here. Gardner on the outside into turn 1. Hodges goes for it. He goes late on the brake makes it. They're going to be side by side coming out the corner. It's now a drag race up the hill. Ferrari versus Ferrari. CXR Project Black on the inside versus Verano Motorsport on the outside. But it is the case that we can see Gardner getting the better exit out the corner as they roll up the hill. He stays ahead of the time being as Gardner. They make the way into 2. It's going to be the case. We can see there Hodges looks the outside, gets Gardner to try and go deep, but it doesn't work. Gardner parks it on apex. They now make their way down towards turn number 3. But whilst they do that, we do have to cut away because right now our race leader makes it out towards turn number 8. And well, the question was, could he take the win over Chris Daines? Will the next gen racing driver Gaz Williams is going to say yes because he comes out the final corner. It is Gaz Williams who takes the win in the feature race at the Red Bull Ring in the Apex Racing Academy lobby in a superb drive from the next gen racing driver. And as he crosses the line, it will be Robert de Ceunik who comes home in P2. The Team Racing Netherlands driver 9, that's a good result, and he will take that one to the bank. And then Chris Daines, well, the perfect run had to end eventually, but he's come home in P3, and the Verano Motorsport driver, giving it all, it will be very happy with that, no doubt. Dan Skinner P4 ahead of Jamie Dory P5. Meanwhile, in the battle for the GT3 PRO lead, Matthew Hodges has found his way past, and as they make their way through the final 2 corners, well, can he hold on for one more corner? And he makes his way through turn number 9, and as he emerges from the A1 corner, he's done it! He's finally broken the duck, and that is a win for Matthew Hodges as he crosses the line. He is your winner in the GT3 Pro class in the Apex Racing Academy lobby feature race here at the Red Bull Ring. Gavin Gardner just losing out at the end. We will take a look back at that in short order, and Callum Regarton, 3rd place in the end in the GT3 Pro class. Meanwhile, in the GT3 AM class, well, I'm not sure what's happened to Darren Doherty, but what I can tell you is that Nigel Stock comes out of the final corner and he makes it back-to-back wins. The Crystal Sport Apex Tracks driver has done a stellar job, and it's back-to-back wins at the Red Bull Ring. He finishes in the win ahead of Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen here as he emerges in the final corner, has found his way past Darren Doherty, who's going to be swamped to the line and just holds onto the podium slot versus Matt Edmonds, who comes home in P4, and Sean Cranley Swash. We couldn't make it back-to-back podiums in the GT3 class, but it is a P5 when it's all said and done. My goodness, what a fantastic race when it all comes to its conclusion. And well, the Red Bull Ring has definitely delivered, but I think we need to take a look back at some of these moves before we stop. And we start off with Nigel Stock passing Darren Doherty for the lead. So this was, they came down to turn 3, and Darren Doherty under pressure went overly deep under braking, and Nigel Stock got the better of him in the end, and Doherty with the spin had to get himself back up to speed. And well, that was very unfortunate for Darren Doherty. And what about the battle between Hodges and Gavin Gardner, I hear you ask? Well, this, we cut away from it moments earlier before we had to look at Gaz Williams crossing the line as our overall winner in the LMP2 class, and we saw this moment in terms of the battle, and this is when we cut away. But now we get to see the story continue in the replay here. So as they made the way out of turn number 2 and down towards 3, Hodges had the run on the outside versus Gardner, who defended to the inside as it was his right to do so. And as Hodges joined into the braking zone near Gardner on the inside, Hodges went around the outside. Now this was very brave, and to be fair, Hodges pinned Gardner very nicely to the apex. He had the run out of the corner, and coming up towards turn number 5 here, Hodges having that inside line. Gardner tried to hold it around the outside, but you can see there's just a little bit of a slide there just beyond the slip angle of the tyre, and that meant that Gardner lost the place. And then when we came back, we saw Hodges in the lead in this position, and my goodness, what a move on the final lap from Hodges. To give credit to Gardner, a brilliant drive to come home in P2 and what he would thought was deserving of the win, but Hodges in the end has finally found a way to take a win in the next gen racing at GT3 class, and well done to the CXR Project Black driver. He will be very pleased with that one, there's no doubt about that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to go through your race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course. So after 60 minutes of racing here in the feature race in the Apex Racing Academy lobby at the Red Bull Ring, round 5 of the Proto GT3 Championship, it is Gaz Williams who makes it a win in the feature. 10.7 seconds clear of Robert de Ceunik there in P2, and Chris Daines making his way onto the final step of the podium there, P3. Dan Skinner, Jamie Dory completing the LMP2 Pro Class top 5 with Edward Lack and Adam Delmont P6, P7. Then Matthew Hodges came home in the end P8 overall, and that is a win in the GT3 Pro Class of the CXR Project Black driver ahead of Gavin Gardner, P2 in the GT3 Pro class, and Callum Reed-Garton, despite the drive-through penalty, coming home at 3rd in the class, 10th overall. Nigel Stott, P11 overall, bringing home the win in the GT3 AM class, ahead of Tom Edmonds and Edoardo Francescin. Then Darren Doherty and Matt Emmons there completing what is, oh goodness me, I think maybe a little bit of confusion here, because I can see the places have swapped for Sean. Well, I think we have had a driver retire by looks of things. We've had Gamble Rasmussen being classified as P17, so drama there already. I wonder if there was a slowdown which Gamble Rasmussen has not taken, but it looks as though Darren Doherty and Matt Emmons have been promoted positions, as has Cranley Swash, and that would mean Doherty and Emmons are on the podium ahead of Cranley Swash and Gamble Rasmussen completing the top 5 in the GT3 AM class. Alexander Batak just missed out in the top 5 there, P18 overall, and well, it must have been a drive-through, you're saying there, Matt Emmons, in the Facebook chat, and thank you for clarifying, and it is the case. In P19, Morton S. Oosterhuis, ahead of Stuart P. Taylor, P20, Lee Horn, P21, Matthew Addy, P22, Matt Caruana, P23, with that unfortunate disconnect and the engine coming apart. Maurizio Marconi, P24, Joe McMars, P25, Jordan Pope, P26. And those are your results, ladies and gentlemen, for the feature race here at the Red Bull Ring. Well, without further ado, we're just going to get ready to conduct our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. We'll be approximately 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are set for our post-round interviews after two absolutely phenomenal races at the Red Bull Ring in the Apex Racing Academy lobby. And if that sets the tone for the racing on the European continent, we definitely have a championship season, which if we weren't already looking forward to it, we're definitely looking forward to now. But tonight's interviews, we're going to have Chris Daines to start off with, the LMP PRO driver, and then we're going to have a mixture of GT3 drivers, including Matthew Hodges, our second interviewee, and then Nigel Stock and Darren Doherty, the pro driver, being followed up by the two AM drivers there. But we start off with Chris Daines in what has been an interesting night for him, a lot of management for him in terms of his broken foot firstly, and also manage his way through the traffic. But without further ado, we're going to bring Chris Daines into the interview room here. Chris, a challenging night for yourself today at the Red Bull Ring, given your health with regards to your recovering foot, but still pulling off a win in the sprint and a third place in the feature. A solid night, I'd say.
Yeah, it weren't too bad. Obviously, a bit tricky having to learn how to brake with the right foot. I haven't done that for a while, so that was definitely interesting practice. But yeah, it's good fun.
Indeed. So, with regards to the broken foot, we won't go into the specifics medically, but just take us through in terms of braking with the right foot. Because a lot of people viewing, they will always do accelerator and braking with your right foot. We as sim racers, we do braking with our left foot and then the throttle with the right foot. Just take us through how you've had to sort of recalibrate your mind in order to do that right foot braking.
Well, first few laps of practice are obviously a bit weird, but it's not too bad. I remember back in the days in the MX5 when I first started, it was all about the clutch and the right foot brake in, and same in the V8s, and I used to do a lot of that, so it sort of brought it back to me. But obviously I haven't done that for a while because you don't need to do that much in an MX5 anymore because it's all just throttle and brake. But after a few laps you get used to it again. I just, in turn 1, 3 and 4, I was using my right foot, and then I was using the side of my left foot just to trail brake slightly. So it was fine in the end actually, and it was pretty quick, to be fair. I ran some quicker times there than I did in practice with my left foot, so I might try again.
Oh, indeed. I mean, just talking about the quick times in qualifying, an absolutely monstrous pole time in the end, 4 tenths clear of anybody else. I do have to ask, was that a case of giving it your all at the last mix? For some time, it did look as though the momentum was swaying to either de Ceunik or Williams.
Yeah, I think Williams was quicker than me in practice, and I knew he could go quicker than what he did. I think maybe I know he had an off as well, same as Dory. I think he had an off in qualifying, so I don't think he quite recovered from those tyres overheating from the spin. So I know he probably could have gone quicker. Um, so I was quite surprised to get the pole, I'll be honest, because I knew a 20.0 or 19.9 there was for Williams especially.
Oh, indeed. And translating that opportunity to seize pole into the race, the sprint race, we saw a difficult start from yourself dropping right down into the midfield. It did look as though it was a bit of a chaotic start. Just take us through that opening lap from your perspective, because it was almost as if you were left stationary at one point.
Yeah, that was I mean, it was a mega race. It was absolutely a mega race. But lap one was fine. Turn one, lap one was fine. And then coming out of the hairpin, you get so much wheel spin with the LMP2 in first gear. You really have to modulate the throttle, and I floored the throttle, gave myself loads of wheel spin, and as the revs were high enough where I thought I could change gear, when actually I was still wheel spinning. So I changed into second gear halfway through where I should be, and it just bogged down, and I lost all momentum. Everyone just come flying past me. But yeah, that teed it up for an exciting rest of the race. That was for sure.
Oh, most definitely. And then fighting your way through, of course, having to battle your way past Jamie Dory, who for a good amount of time really was battling hard with you. Great side-by-side racing. And then having to come past Robert de Ceunik and also Gaz Williams, who are in their own battle as well. Just take us through that, because, of course, managing that race, we've typically seen you right up front. We haven't had to see too much battling from you. But to be fair, you can get your elbows out when needed. Was it something you enjoyed, right being in the thick of it again?
Absolutely loved it. There was so much respect from de Ceunik, especially because I think I was side by side with de Ceunik for an entire lap almost, and then I got in front of him. Then he got back past me again, another half a lap. We were side by side. Same with Williams and Dory throughout that, and there was just I came away with that. Even if I came away third or fourth, I just know that it's just really good respect between the drivers going side by side like that, and to be in the thick of it like that was, I absolutely love it. I love that side by side racing like that, because it doesn't matter where you finish after that. If you've had a good race like that with respect between all the drivers, you come away smiling regardless.
Oh, most definitely. And we absolutely loved it from the television cameras, I can tell you that. And then translating into the feature race, we saw a bit of a different strategy from yourself. Did you decide to change tyres in the pits?
No, I had a 40-second stop and go penalty because I crossed the white line coming into the pit lane.
Oh, goodness me, because we saw the timers in terms of there was an extended pit stop. And we were wondering what had exactly happened. That clarifies because you were pushing very hard for that second stint. Managed to close up and then bring home P3. Looked as though qualifying laps from start to finish.
I had to. It was I was so angry at myself because the first part of that stint I'd saved so much fuel to go an extra lap. So I knew I'd have to put less fuel in, but I was so eager to get in the pits, and because this Red Bull circuit, the pit entry is so tight, it's so easy to miss the pit entry and just clip that white line. And I went straight over the top of it. I was saying to my teammates before the race, said, "Don't cross that white line. Whatever you do, don't cross the white line." And then guess who goes and does it? That was me, Muggins.
Indeed, one of those do as I say, not as I do moments. But still, with that, I hate to say that your perfect run in this series has finally come to an end, but know that you have set record books alight with 4 back-to-back perfect runs. And just on that, of course, I do have to ask, what pressure comes with you going week in, week out with the fact that you're picking up those perfect scores and there's so much pace? Is it just something you see as sort of, it's another day in the cockpit, or is it the case you always want to get that perfect score?
You always want to get the perfect score, don't you? But yeah, there's pressure there, obviously, and I think I put a lot of pressure on myself tonight to try and get another win. But I knew coming to this, and I know I've said it a couple of rounds before, with these guys that are getting quicker, and they are just edging closer and closer and closer every round. And this was the one round where I knew they were all within a tenth of me. So I ultimately going into this, even if I was at my absolute best, it would have been really hard to beat these guys today. But yeah, just I'm smiling from ear to ear. Just a big shout out to the LMP drivers for being so respectful on track as well. I know there's a few incidents at the start of a few, but that happens. It's racing, unfortunately. But with regards to on track battling, um, Williams 100% deserves it, and great drive from him. He didn't put a foot wrong all race, with 0 incidents in that last race for an entire hour, not to go off track limits as well, was just incredible. So huge grats to Gaz Williams there.
Oh, indeed, a sensational drive from him and really teeing us up for a great championship season ahead. And looking ahead now to next week, we head to Hockenheim. How are you feeling for the German circuit?
Yeah, I love Hockenheim. I must admit, it's one of these newer tracks in iRacing, isn't it? And I've run a few laps there in the LMP2 last season, and it's a great track to drive the LMP2 on. Huge straights as well, so very tight corners, flowing corners as well in the second sector, and a very tricky last couple of corners, which can really catch you out as well. So really looking forward to it actually. So yeah, Hockenheim, bring it on.
Well, we look forward to seeing you take it to the German circuit in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview room as always, Chris. And congratulations once again on both your win and also your third place finish in the feature.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I just want to say thanks for your broadcast as well. You do an excellent job, and everyone enjoys watching the back. So thanks ever so much for what you're doing for us, mate.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Take care now. Bye bye.
You too. All the best. So hearing that from Chris Daines, very happy with how things have gone today. And what I really like about what you're saying there is the fact that in the sprint in particular, we saw that fantastic side-by-side battling between himself and de Ceunik, which we covered for a good amount of time, is the fact that even if he'd finished behind de Ceunik in the end, he would have still walked away from that very happy. And that's the kind of race that we absolutely want to create here at Next Gen. And indeed, Daines and de Ceunik, and also Williams, to be fair, great race and respect shown. And well, with the LMP2 Pro class inching ever closer to the pace that Daines has set as really the bar, it is one of those situations whereby I think as we go deeper and deeper into this season now, we're going to see even more battling as we go deeper on, particularly at Hockenheim with some great overtaking opportunities, and as Daines was saying there, some long straights. But we must now come from our Danishman to what is our Briton of Matthew Hodges, who in the end in the GT3 Pro class I think might be a little bit ecstatic. Let's bring him in to the interview room. And as he joins us in the interview room, Matthew, it's been a long time coming, but finally we have seen the CXR Project Black Ferrari take the win in the feature race. How does it feel to be on top?
Oh, it was a cracking race. It was brilliant fun. Fair play to Gavin. Much respect between us, and he gave me room, I gave him room, and that was a cracking race. The whole race was great, and the sprint I enjoyed as well. But just being able to make it stick on the last lap, I was trying to work out where where to pass because he was quick in multiple places. But there was a couple of sections I knew I was better. Turn 5 down the bottom of the hill. I knew I was a bit better there going in. So that's why I was able to hold the outside but we pretty much had a lap side by side. So it was great fun, and I'm buzzing from the race. So a really good evening.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And to be fair, it's not just about the win tonight. Well, that's a huge highlight. We've seen this growing pace from yourself over the opening 4 rounds of the season, Daytona last time out, and also to be fair at Motorsport. But it looks as though that pace is really starting to shine through in the sprint and also in qualifying. We saw a great result. How do you feel your whole night's been in general?
Oh, it's been a brilliant night tonight. I was a little bit surprised being up the front, running with Matt and Tom in the first race, and yeah, it was just they were battling. I was thinking, come on, have a little touch, go on, part the road, and I'll come on through near the end. But yeah, their battling meant I stayed in touch. Otherwise, they were gone. They're another level around here. But no, it's been great, and with the feature race, I was able to pick through the field without any accidents. LMPs were pretty respectful for the most part, and there was one time I came into the last but one turn downshifted as I was braking, and the back started to come round, and I had to give it a bit of a brake stab and a slight opposite lock, and then regather. That was fairly early on, but it's been a really good evening for myself, must be said.
Oh, indeed, and it's that growing form from yourself, and of course, focusing a little bit on the feature race there, we saw at the start of the race picking your way through the order. Was there a particular strategy you had in mind? Was it the case you needed to gain as soon as possible, or was it one of those ones sort of you'd gauge when you'd pit based on how much progress you made?
Strategy was follow Matt if I could, because he is awesome at driving through. Unfortunate to have a disconnect, or what, I don't know what happened to him, but that was a bit of that's kind of why I'm talking to you now, because otherwise you'd be talking to Matt Caruana. But you got to finish the race, so yeah, I'll take that. And my strategy was just overtake cars, send it if it with respect to send it, not complete dive bombs, but I was aiming to come through, move to the right. I'm going to try and break deep, come through, and that was just to be respectful enough, but make my way through the pack.
Oh, indeed. Well, I can say that Matt, whilst he did have that retirement due to the disconnection, we'll put that down to engine failure in the Audi. He did say in the YouTube chat as you crossed the finish line that what a beast of a drive from yourself. And I do have to ask, in terms of, as we're here now at round number 5 and looking ahead to Hockenheim in a week's time, how are you feeling that momentum's coming with you? Because we've seen those performances grow as time has gone on.
Yeah, just finding some pace. The only reason I can say is I've started RC car racing, and that's maybe keeping my reflexes on the ball, because restarted, I should say. I used to race many years ago, but yeah, so I do that a few times a week now, and it's hand-eye coordination, quick reactions. It's just a little bit different, similar but different, and maybe that's the thing. That's the only other training I've been doing. No gym or anything like that. That's for sure.
Indeed, a rather unique piece of training there, but one to keep in mind. And, well, looking at Hockenheim in a week's time, the German circuit, how are you feeling for the rather tricky circuit?
Like Hockenheim, there are times where you can have accidents. There are a few sausage curbs you need to avoid, and there's a couple of corners where it can go wrong. But yeah, just it's a pretty good track. Just got to keep it on the island, and hopefully get some good lap times out of it, and a solid race again. But yeah, I do enjoy that track, so it's one I'm looking forward to.
Oh, well, we look forward to seeing you take to the German asphalt in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview room, Matthew Hodges, and congratulations once again, not just on 3rd place in the sprint, but also the long time coming win in the feature.
Thank you, Paul. It's a great stream, and it's a superb thing being able to watch the races back afterwards as well. I know a lot of the drivers do the same, and it's something I look forward to after the racing, especially if you had a good one. I will be watching these back, and yeah, just have a relive of the event, and with a bit of commentary from yourself, and it's superb commentary, I might add.
Oh, thank you, and I'm glad to hear you enjoy it. Well, at the end of the day, I can only commentate on the fantastic race in action produced by you guys, and yourself and Gardner tonight. I think you guys take the crown of brilliant racing through and through.
Yeah, it's good racing with someone with good respect as well, and I knew I could rely on him giving me just enough room, and I knew I could give him just enough room, and yeah, we gave each other room, and it was good racing. So that's how it goes.
Oh, indeed. Well, hopefully you two will get into battle again next time out, but we will just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will. Thanks, Paul.
No problem. You have a lovely evening.
And you.
Hearing that from Matthew Hodges, very happy of his performances today, and particularly that battle from what was the midpoint to the finish of the feature race. And really, it shows how far Hodges has come. The fact there's been that determination to push through, and despite the adversity in what was the GT3 Season 2 in particular, and many of you who followed that series will remember back at Spa, where he looked to be on course for that potential win for it to all go wrong on the final lap. It is the case. It's been a long time coming. He's finally broken the duck of the win. And I think Hodges is really the man to watch out for right now. He was saying that he's not quite on the pace of the likes of Matt Caruana and Tom Edmonds, and we saw that in the sprint. The two of them battling brought Hodges in, along with Callum Regarton. But there's no reason why Hodges cannot be back on that podium multiple more times this season. I think he's a very strong driver, and he's a bit of a dark horse in terms of if the results come, or a driver has a bad day ahead of him, such as Matt Caruana with that retirement, he'll be there to pick up the points and potentially the all-important win. You never know what could happen. But now we must come to our third interviewee for this evening, and that is Nigel Stock, our driver in the AM class, who has put home 2 wins back-to-back tonight, and we'll bring him in very shortly into the interview room. Just give us a brief moment. We're just trying to find Nigel Stock, but really it has been a story of growing momentum, and in the Mercedes, the lone Mercedes that took to the circuit tonight, and well, I've just been able to find him. It is the case we bring Nigel Stock into the interview room. Nigel, it was the case a couple of weeks ago you picked up your maiden win in the series, and tonight you've picked up 2 wins back-to-back in the GT3 AM class. How do you feel about your day at the Red Bull Ring?
Quite knackering, to be honest, after that battle at the end there. Yeah. But I mean, it was good to get another good load of points on the board.
Oh, most definitely, and we'll come straight into that battle between yourself and Darren Doherty. It went on for the best part of 20 minutes, and your pace, until you caught up to him, was blistering. But when you got close to him, it seems though you hit a little bit of a wall of dirty air there, or was it just the case that Doherty seemed to have just a bit of a defensive advantage?
I think it was a bit of both, and like it was sort of like it was a good set, I think a good little 5-10 minutes where we were sort of just doing the same times, and I wasn't really catching him. And then I don't know if whatever reason, but I just started catching him, and then I finally got to him, and then we had a little battle, and then I went wide at the last corner and got a slowdown penalty, and I thought that was it then, but I managed to catch back up and have another go.
Oh, indeed. A great amount of perseverance to close back up. And I do have to ask, given the fact that you are our only Mercedes who took to the circuit tonight, a lot of our drivers in the Lamborghini, for example, such as Doherty, how do you feel that gives you a different set of tactics or perhaps an advantage? Because that Mercedes is blistering on the straights.
Yeah, it seems to be good, and something like I think it has sort of different. If one different track, it seems to have different strengths because it's quite like at Daytona. I seem to be sort of like compared to I think it was Matthew Addy. I seem to be faster out the corners than him there, but then at this track, I didn't seem to be as that quick out the corners. But I was just seemed as soon as I got the slipstream, it would just pull up behind and just seemed to be just. I just really enjoy driving it. Really, it's quite a good car. I'm surprised that I'm the only one left driving it, to be honest.
You may be the only one driving it, but you're making it work. And just talking about your evening in general, we saw in qualifying a great performance from yourself, but in the end it was P2 in the GT3M class with Gamborg Rasmussen just taking that pole position off you with his final lap. Were you a bit gutted at that? Because I thought you might have thought it was all said and done.
Yeah, I was a little good, especially as how everything's gone now. I mean, it would have been perfect if I got the extra point for pole as well, but sadly it wasn't meant to be. But if I managed to get that, it would have been the whole lot. But I don't think I've ever got a pole, so it would have been nice to have got a pole. But there's always next time. So.
Oh, indeed. But then in the sprint race, very fast start from yourself. Saw you come up through the order and take the lead of the class early on. Just take us through what happened in the opening laps of that sprint.
Well, because we were starting sort of further back, and I was trying to so I think coming out the second to last corner, I was sort of trying to keep the inside because I didn't want all the pros getting away, and then the guy at the lead in the AMs, I didn't want him to get away because of all the pros in between. So then he just slow out the last corner, and I just went round the outside and managed to get in front of him, and then I just sort of tried to just stay ahead and build a gap, and eventually I managed to, which was good.
Well, indeed, an absolutely brilliant gap and coming home by a clear margin as our winner in the sprint race. And then going into the feature, What was your plan in the feature? Because you had a lot of pace to deploy it in that Mercedes. Was it to try and cut your way through early? Because we saw you pit very early on in the race as well.
Mainly was trying to stay out of trouble at the start. I let all most of the pros go, and I started building my way through the AMs. And then I think the second to last corner, one of the Audis ran into the back of me, and I don't know how badly damaged my car was, but it just didn't seem to have the sort of pace that it had before. So I thought I'd pit in early, use the fast repair, and get some clean air and see what I can do. And then I was sort of see where everyone came out when I came out, and everyone seemed to, and then I managed to get past everyone, and then I saw Matt Emmons come out, and then he went back in the pits again for some reason, and then I thought, well, that's someone else that has to worry about, and then there was just Darren Doherty that was left in front, so then I just thought I'll try and chase him down and see if I can win, which I managed to, thankfully.
Oh, indeed. And I have to ask, when he outbroke himself into turn 3, went deep and off onto the gravel, what was going through your mind for the remainder of that lap?
Well, I remember going into the corner, I was thinking I braked at the last I could. I thought if I brake any later, I'm not going to make the corner. And then I saw him out the right side, and he was about a car width ahead or something. I thought, well, there's no way he's making that. So I tried to manage, and then I just was just relieved really that I could just take it easy for the last little bit and just enjoy it really, because but I was a bit gutted for him because he drove such a great race, and it was not the best way to end it. It would have been nice to battle to the end, but it was good for me.
Oh, indeed. And looking ahead now to Hockenheim in a week's time, how are you feeling for the home circuit of the Mercedes?
Well, pretty good, because that's where I got my first red in season 1 in the feature race in the Lamborghini. So hopefully I can repeat that and maybe even try and do the double again, and maybe even get a pole. Hopefully.
Well, fingers crossed for you. We'll have to wait and see in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview, Nigel. Congratulations on your back-to-back wins tonight, and we'll see you in a week's time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Have a lovely evening. So hearing there from Nigel Stock, very happy with his performances tonight. And it is the case, the Mercedes driver there, really talking out the fact, feeling a bit sad for Darren Doherty, who in the end outbroke himself into turn 3 right at the final moment in the race. But to be fair, sometimes that's what you've got to do. You've just got to keep the pressure on the driver in front of you, and they may make a mistake right when it's the most critical moment. But also, what I respect about Nigel Stock, though, is talking about his choice of car, the fact that it seems to the Mercedes brings something new to the table at each and every circuit. And today, it was about that straight line speed. It wasn't quite strong coming out of the corner and getting up to speed initially, but once he's able to put the power down and start to build up the speed on those straightaways, that Mercedes was flying. And also had to adapt his strategy as he gave away there in the feature race with regards to that contact early in the feature, and he pitted. He was the earliest of our GT3 AM drivers to take their scheduled stop. He made it work, and in the end he just simply kept out of trouble and closed up to the back of Doherty, and of course did have Matt Emmons with that drive-through penalty to serve, which gave him a position. But at the end of the day, it's about keeping it on the road, and if you do so, then the points will come on through. Now, having covered Nigel Stock, we do have to talk to his rival, and that is Darren Doherty, as we're about to bring the Irishman into the interview room, but we're just going to try and find him very briefly. And of course, for Darren Doherty tonight, it has been an evening of two halves. A very difficult sprint race, followed up by a great feature. Not the perfect feature race he would have wanted, but still, I think at the end of the day, he'll be giving himself a pat on the back. We bring him into the interview room now, and as he comes on into the interview room, as he joins us here, Darren, difficult night for yourself, albeit started off on a difficult note in the sprint. It was looking absolutely fantastic in the feature and then concluded with a bit of a bad moment for yourself. How do you think your Red Bull experience has been?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Well, again, brilliant stream. Yeah, the sprint race was, it was disappointing, and apologies to Stuart Taylor. I went up the inside of turn 1, and he's turned in. I couldn't go nowhere, so yeah, the sprint race wasn't great. But the feature race, I must have been brilliant broadcasting, because I had a big battle with Matthew Ames for, I'd say, 15-20 minutes. And then he went into pit lane, and I didn't see him come back out because I went a lap later. And I thought I had it, just had to keep it going. And then all of a sudden, Nigel Stock appeared, and he was catching me heck out of out of turn 1, he was pulling, catching me in the final turn with the Merc, and yeah, I think under the defending, I was defending very heavy on the last lap. I've been late on the brakes, went wide, and yeah, I made a mistake that cost me, but it was great racing. Fair play to Nigel, he was faster, so I done as much as I could right up to the last lap.
Oh, indeed. And, well, just dissecting it into individual components here. Of course, qualifying and the sprint race, as you say, the sprint in particular, not going too well with the contact with Stuart Taylor. But I do have to ask, given the fact you weren't able to perhaps unleash the pace that you had, was it one of those moments where you're thinking to yourself, right, I've got to reserve it all for the feature race and show everyone what I can do with the reverse grid start?
Yeah, definitely. I knew from practice yesterday evening and later on this evening, I had definitely thought I had the pace to be up and around the top 3. So I knew I had it. I didn't have a good run in the sprint, which obviously put me down at the back of the field. I think I was nearly towards the back of the grid. And yeah, it was a bit argy-bargy for 2 laps, and then after that, especially on this track, you seen it with Nigel and Matt Ames when we were racing. We were hitting the same lap times, lap after lap after lap. So it's there was not much gains. So you're only catching 0.1 a lap at that. So you have to gain over 10, 15 laps the car in front if they're on par. So the feature race did suit me, because on the sprint, if you lose a second, you haven't got enough time with a 15-minute sprint. But in the feature race, obviously, yes, you could see it was exciting right in mid race, and then obviously Matthew, I believe now he got a black flag. That's the reason he dropped off, and then obviously Nigel Stock then had a good door to door action on 1 or 2 corners. But Nigel is a very respectful driver, and we both showed each other a bit of respect. And at that stage, I said I made a mistake. Fair play to Nigel. He pushed me into making the mistake, and he went on to win. So fair play to him.
Oh, indeed. And as you say, great racing respect shown between the 2 of you, and we absolutely love to see it live on the broadcast. And I do have to ask, with regards to your strategy in the feature, we saw you go one of the latest of our scheduled stops in the GT3 AM class. Was that always the plan, given that you'd held on to the lead position before the pit stops, was to essentially overcut the field?
Yeah, I always watch to see what the car that I'm competing with's doing. So Matthew Ames, I was watching him to see when he was going to pit. I did manage to save a wee bit of fuel, which allowed me to push that extra lap, because I was sitting behind a lot of the cars for the first 10-15 minutes. So I had another lap to go. Usually what I'll do is, if the LMPs are coming behind me, and I know I'm going to lose a bit of time on the last lap, I'll come in early. But I had a clear field. There was no LMPs. So I seen Matthew coming in at a clear track in front of me. So I pushed, knowing rightly I was coming in the next lap. I had to jump Matthew Ames, but whenever I come out, he wasn't on track. I didn't see him. So I had jumped him. I think I jumped up to P3, P4 after the pit stop. So I knew I had a good pit stop, and it was a good call to come in at the latest.
Indeed, and that strategy are working out, and it was the run to the finish between yourself and Nigel Stock. And when Nigel Stock got close, we saw for a number of moments, of course, the close battle, and then Stock made a brief error, which saw him drop away, and he closed up again. I do have to ask, all the way through that, we did have the question about tyre degradation and also the fuel. Was there quite a lot of car management going in there? Because it looked as though you could just break away, but every time you started to open that gap up, it was the case that Stock would reel it back in.
Yeah, he made a mistake. I think the gap at one stage pulled to 1.4, and I thought, with 10 minutes ago, that should be enough. But every lap, I started having to brake earlier, because the tires I couldn't grip. The tires weren't turning in. I wasn't hitting the apexes. I was losing valuable tenths, and obviously that allowed Nigel to push as well. So the tires definitely did start to go off, and then I had to defend. If you look at the last lap, I was coming off the racing line, sitting in the middle of the track to stop Nigel coming up the inside of me. But then that compromised my exit, where Nigel was able to get the exit, especially with the Merc. So he was coming back at me. So I was just lucky to defend up until that stage. I knew if he didn't get me there, he was definitely going to get me at the very last corner, because the Merc on the ad exit, Nigel was faster. So if we had went into that last corner as close as we were, I think Nigel would have caught me in the line. So I don't know what was worse, me making a mistake and losing it, or could have potentially lost it on the run to the line.
Oh, indeed. Well, still, it was a cracking attempt at defence from yourself. And whilst there was that mistake, still a P2 when all was said and done with Gamble Rasmussen. We believe having to serve effectively the equivalent of a drive-through penalty in terms of end race time. But with the 8th and the 2nd today, a lot of momentum building the championship for yourself and pace growing. We head to Hockenheim in a week's time. How are you feeling for the German circuit?
Yeah, it's a new track, but I have raced it in the iRacing tournament, so I'm confident that I'll have a good turnout at the end. The Huracan is absolutely brilliant around that track, so I definitely look forward to next week.
Oh, well, we'll look forward to seeing you take to the German circuit. But until then, congratulations on your results today, particularly the 2nd place in the feature race. And thank you for joining us in the interview room, Darren. We really do appreciate it.
No, thanks very much for everything, Paul. And again, brilliant broadcast. Thanks very much for everything.
No problem. It's my pleasure. But with that, I wish you a lovely evening.
You too, Paul.
So hearing there from Darren Doherty, and I think it's a bit of a bittersweet evening for Darren Doherty, but there's a lot of things that he's going to build on, no doubt, going into the next round. And the key things he's taken away, his pace is definitely up there now. And as he was saying, he felt as though today he was on the pace of the top 3 in the AM class, and he showed it. Not necessarily in qualifying or the sprint, but definitely in the feature. And that's why in the end he managed the strategy well, overcut the field, and it was just Nigel Stock in the end who was the fly in the ointment, who just had a little bit more pace in that Mercedes, that grunt, that V8 guttural grunt versus the Lamborghini's Audi engine. And it was the situation whereby Stock was able to close up, but brilliant battling between the two, and it all came down to one error. Although very interesting theory from Doherty with regards to the final corner and the drag race to the finish line. Would the Mercedes have outdragged the Lamborghini? Again, that's something we can only hypothesize and think about now, but still you can definitely see Doherty has got his eye in for being right up there in the GT3 AM Championship. And I think we have by no means got runaway leaders in this championship. We may have had going into tonight Emmons and Addy right up there and breaking away, but I think when we go to Hockenheim, those championship tables are going to be severely altered. And I think as we go to the halfway point of this season after Hockenheim, it's going to be a very wide open GT3 AM Drivers Championship. But with that, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we've got time for today. And if you would like to know more about Next Gen Racing, us as a community, and the series we run and what we do, be sure to check us out, our official website. That is nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you are on Facebook, you can go to our official Facebook group. That is facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a huge thank you to our partners without whom we'd not be able to bring you this series and this lobby in particular. Lobby 1 being sponsored by Apex Racing Academy, their website apexracingac.com. But now we must take a moment to breathe and a moment to pause, because next time, in a week's time, on the Wednesday, the 18th of May, 2022, we head to Germany for the Hockenheim Ring. It is going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and at this circuit, we've got long straights and a very technical middle sector. You can imagine it's all going to be on the line once again, a different circuit from the Red Bull Ring, and one which will be more technical for our drivers. It may suit some, it may not suit others. We'll have to wait and see who comes out on top there. But join us in a week's time for that, and if you haven't quite had your racing fill this week, do come back on Friday, where we'll be bringing you the post-race broadcast of the second lobby. That's the IMB Racewear lobby at the Red Bull Ring, and seeing how our drivers in the classes got on there. But until then, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We have been Next Gen Racing. I have been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit. And until next time, as always, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.